Chapter 698. P.S. Update complete. Fang Qingyang moved like a stream of light and appeared behind Lu Yurong. Lu Yurong reacted quickly and countered with a palm. Bam! The fist and palm collided and Lu Yurong was sent flying. His inner energy was as vast as the sea. Lu Yurong did not have time to use her secret skill and her inner energy collapsed under the impact of his mighty inner energy. She was almost defenseless. Fang Qingyang sped up and caught up with her as she retreated and punched again. He used the Divine Light Fist. His Divine Light Fist was completely different from the other Holy Church of Light disciples' Divine Light Fist. Its power was incomparable, and it was like a blazing sun that could not be stopped. Chu Li abandoned God's limbs and used the imminent skyline. He appeared in the air in a flash and held Lu Yurong in his arms while using the Shura palm with his left hand. Pop! It was like a pebble falling into a deep well. The fist and palm energy collided in the air and became invisible. One extreme yin and the other extreme yang, they cancelled each other out. Great palm energy! Fang Qingyang's handsome face was filled with excitement. He did not expect Chu Li's inner energy to be so profound. He threw more than 10 punches with both hands. Streaks of transparent fist prints condensed in the air and smashed toward Chu Li like hail. They covered the sky and covered the earth. They were so fast and fierce that Chu Li could not avoid them at all. Chu Li held Lu Yurong and retreated. The imminent skyline was so fast that the fist prints could not catch up to him. Swoosh swoosh. 2 streams of light shot out. One of the light blades hit Chu Li's chest, while the other hit Lu Yurong. The light blades were so powerful that they could only be dodged and not blocked. If he dodged, Lu Yurong would not be able to. If he pulled Lu Yurong away, he would not be able to dodge. He thought quickly and made a decision. He pushed Lu Yurong away and tried his best to avoid the attack. Swoosh! The light blade pierced through his chest and disappeared behind him. Lu Yurong bit her red lips and glared at him. You go first. As if he was not the one who was pierced in the chest, Chu Li appeared beside her in a flash and grabbed her by the waist before shooting out. In a flash, they were more than 20 meters away. Fang Qingyang frowned and shook his head. He did not expect his light blades to fail again and again. This Chu Li was quite capable. He shot out several light blades and shot toward Chu Li like a stream of light. The light blade arrived first. It was as if Chu Li had eyes at the back of his head. He turned sideways gracefully and easily dodged the attack. After all, they were so far apart. It was as if the wound on his chest did not exist. Not a single drop of blood flowed out. His body flickered faster and faster as he executed a secret technique. Fang Qingyang shook his head and activated the secret technique of great light. His body suddenly sped up and he caught up to Chu Li in an instant, striking out with his divine light fist. Chu Li did not dodge or evade. Instead, he took the punch with his back and used the force of the punch to launch himself out of the way, increasing the distance between them. Fang Qingyang shook his head calmly. Using this move to increase his speed was indeed risking his life, but in front of him, risking his life was useless. Like a flash of light, he caught up with Chu Li again and threw another punch. Bang! Chu Li took another punch head-on. There was blood at the corner of his mouth, but his expression did not change. Although the imminent skyline was amazing, it was not as fast as Fang Qingyang's body movement technique, so he could only rely on this stupid method. Lu Yurong was pressed tightly against his chest, blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. Her internal organs had been severely injured. The fist force of Fang Qingyang's divine light fist was too pure and scorching, burning her internal organs incessantly. The Empyrean fairy power could restrain the great light scripture, but the great light scripture could also restrain her. Chu Li tried hard to forget the pain in his body and used the nature restoration manifestation. Although the omniscient mirror was restrained, as long as it did not focus on Fang Qingyang, he could still see his surroundings. The terrain of the mountains and rivers was reflected in his mind, and he could also see the traces of flying blades. Fang Qingyang frowned. A normal punch could be fatal, but Chu Li had taken 2 slashes and a few punches, yet he was still full of vigor. The more it was like this, the more he wanted to kill Chu Li. Like a flash of light, he appeared behind Chu Li and got even closer. His fist hit Chu Li's back again. Chu Li held Lu Yurong's slender waist with his left hand and suddenly pulled out his sword with his right. A cold star suddenly pierced Fang Qingyang's throat. Unexpectedly, the power of the cloud slashing sword technique was at its strongest. Pfft! Fang Qingyang's eyes widened in shock as his throat was hit by the sword. Although his internal energy was strong, the tip of the sword still pierced his throat, causing blood to gush out. He hurriedly used his inner energy to dissolve the sword force, preventing it from entering his mind. The inner energy of the great light scripture surged endlessly, expelling the sword force that was constantly devouring and growing. Chu Li had not used the cloud slashing power all this while. He had been waiting for this moment, and it worked. Chu Li knew that this sword could not kill him, so he delayed it for a moment to fight for a chance of survival. He and Lu Yurong had already arrived at a cliff, and they leaped down without hesitation. Fang Qingyang's great light scripture was extremely refined, and he quickly dispelled the sword force. He turned into a flash of light and arrived at the cliff. He watched as Chu Li and Lu Yurong fell into the unfathomably deep valley, where they were quickly covered by the thick fog and disappeared. Fang Qingyang stomped his foot hard, shattering the mountain rocks. He shook his head. Chu Li's body disappeared in a flash in the air. Using this cliff, he finally escaped from Fang Qingyang's suppression range and was able to use God's limbs. The two appeared behind Gu Qi in the next moment. Lu Yurong was heavily injured, and so was Chu Li, but both of them understood that if they could not kill Gu Qi now, they would never have another chance to kill him. Fortunately, Gu Qi's injuries were more serious. After taking 2 punches from Chu Li, the fist force continued to devour and strengthen him. Gu Qi's injuries worsened and he could no longer move. Swoosh! Chu Li swung his sword with all his might, and Gu Qi's head flew off. Before his head could hit the ground, Chu Li had already disappeared with Lu Yurong in his arms. Fang Qingyang appeared like a flash of light, and when he saw Gu Qi's head and body in two, he could not help but let out a long howl that reverberated between heaven and earth. Bam, 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 bam. Trees that were as thick as a man's arms were broken. Leaves fluttered in the air, and the moment they landed near him, they turned into powder with a pop and were shattered by the violent energy around him. Fang Qingyang quickly stopped, and his expression returned to normal, still handsome. All the trees within a 20-meter radius were cleared, and turned into a layer of powder on the grassland. Fang Qingyang stood where he was, deep in thought. He replayed the entire process from the beginning to the end, everything clearly flashing in his mind as he assessed his gains and losses. He shook his head from time to time. His martial arts far surpassed the two of them, but Chu Li still managed to escape with his men, and even killed Gu Qi. It was indeed his mistake, and he had underestimated Chu Li. He took a deep breath, and his handsome face regained its calm. He picked up Gu Qi and his head, and turned into a flash of light. Chu Li and Lu Yurong suddenly appeared in the Ren public house's backyard. Chu Li fell on his back, and his eyes were already closed. Lu Yurong hurriedly reached out to support him, but she fell to the ground instead. The two of them fell together on the carpet in the gazebo, and with Chu Li pressing on her chest, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her injuries had worsened, and she could not get up from underneath Chu Li. Chu Li remained motionless, unconscious, and Lu Yurong was also on her last breath. "My lady!" 9 maids fluttered over and called out anxiously. Lu Yurong struggled to remove her veil, and the blood-soaked veil stuck to her face was extremely uncomfortable. She said laboriously, "Help him up carefully. This guy is too despicable, just kill him." A beautiful maid said. Lu Yurong said weakly, "I don't have time to argue with you, he saved me, Give him the adversity-surpassing pill. Adversity-surpassing pill. The 9 maids were slightly hesitant. Lu Yurong glared at them. My words don't matter anymore. Chapter 699. The adversity-surpassing pill took effect quickly. As soon as it entered her mouth, it merged with her saliva and turned into a warm current that flowed throughout her body. The warm current circled her body in the blink of an eye and finally hovered around her heart, protecting her heart meridian. Lu Yurong sighed in relief. She could not suppress the inner energy of the Great Light Scripture, and her injuries were worsening. The Scripture of Great Light's inner energy was like a real flame, a flame with an extremely high temperature. His own inner energy was like a block of ice that kept melting and shrinking in front of this flame. The inner energy of a grandmaster was endless, but when her internal organs were injured, the endless inner energy could not keep up with the burning of the Great Light Scripture, and could not continue. She had already given up on the idea of expelling the inner energy of the Great Light Scripture. She only wanted to suppress it temporarily and wait for her internal injuries to stabilize before slowly cultivating to dissolve it. The 9 maids stared at her and sighed in relief when they saw that her eyebrows had relaxed. They sat around her and held each other's hands. Once the beauty power was activated, the 9's aura instantly merged into one. After the aura circulated a few times, the 2 maids each held one of Lu Yurong's hands and pulled her into the circle. Extremely pure and vast inner energy flowed within the bodies of the 10 maids. Lu Yurong was the ruler and the 9 maids were her subjects. This pure and vast inner energy moved according to Lu Yurong's will. The inner energy of the 10 maids was like Lu Yurong's own inner energy. She could control it with ease without any hindrance. The inner energy of the 10 maids was pure and cold. It was like a vast ocean surging towards the Great Light Scripture. The Great Light Scripture was pure and hot. It kept melting their inner energy, but it was still devoured. The flames were extinguished, but the 10 maids did not let go. They began to cultivate the healing heart technique to repair Lu Yurong's body. 4 hours later, Lu Yurong let go of her hands and slowly opened her eyes. There were 2 bolts of lightning in her eyes. Lady, are you okay? A beautiful maid asked. Lu Yurong shook her head. The maid said, Lady, what happened? How did you get so badly injured? Was it because of this B******? Xiao Mei. Lu Yurong scoffed. What are you thinking? Every time he comes looking for you, nothing good comes out of it. Xiao Mei said unhappily. Lu Yurong rolled her eyes at her and approached Chu Li. Chu Li lay motionless on the thick, soft carpet as if he was dead. She felt for Chu Li's pulse and found that it was not beating. His breath was so weak that it was almost gone. It was a sign that he was on the verge of death. Her expression immediately changed as she frowned and said, Xiao Mei, did you just give him a crossing adversity pill? Of course. Xiao Mei nodded. I don't like him, but I will do as you say. Give him another one. Lu Yurong said. Xiao Mei hesitated and said, Miss, 1 is enough. If 1 is not enough, even 10 is useless. The adversity-surpassing pill was exceptionally precious. A single pill was equivalent to a life. The young miss did not have many, so how could she casually waste them? Wasting a single one could cost her life. Yum? Guy, not to mention kissing to relieve the boredom? Oyster feed. Xiao Mei helplessly took out a white jade bottle, poured out a golden pill, and passed it to Lu Yurong. Lu Yurong looked at it carefully and nodded. It was indeed an adversity-surpassing pill. She stuffed it into Chu Li's mouth and lightly pressed on his cheek acupuncture point. However, she realized that her finger was repelled. His body was filled with violent inner energy, and the slightest touch was repelled. She guessed that Chu Li's body must be in a terrible state, so she pressed on his chest and sent some inner energy in. However, it was immediately repelled by an overbearing inner energy. Ugh! She spat out a mouthful of blood. Miss! The ladies screamed. Lu Yurong wiped the corner of her mouth and rolled her eyes at them. Don't make a fuss. Xiaomei said. Miss, are you really okay? Lu Yurong shook her head. It's just a small injury. She looked at Chu Li worriedly. No wonder the adversity surpassing pill did not work. The force in his body was too overbearing. Once the adversity surpassing pill's force entered his body, it would be immediately expelled. Could not help him at all. The lady stared at Chu Li. He was stabbed in the heart? Xiaomei whispered. Lu Yurong nodded. He was trying to save me. He was stabbed a few times and punched a few times. I was injured like that, but I only took one punch. Miss, who did you guys meet? Xiaomei asked. How could he be so powerful? If I wasn't here, he wouldn't have suffered so much. Lu Yurong sighed, her eyes wandering around Chu Li's face. The lady's impression of Chu Li changed instantly. His body is extremely strong. Another maid pointed at Chu Li's wound. This is another stab and it's almost healed. His recovery speed is too shocking. Miss, with his body, he definitely won't die. That's right. The ladies nodded hurriedly. Lu Yurong nodded slowly. She did not believe that Chu Li could not survive. Miss, who did it? Xiaomei asked. Lu Yurong said, Priest of the Holy Church of Light, Fang Qingyang. She scoffed, but she had to admit that Fang Qingyang's cultivation level was far superior to hers. She had always thought that even if she was not number one among the younger generation, she would at least be in the top 10. Other than the younger generation of the four major sects and Chu Li, no one else would be her match. Now it seemed that her vision was still too narrow. The Li dynasty also had four major sects, and the Holy Church of Light alone probably had many who were stronger than her. This priest is stronger than Chu Li? Xiaomei asked. Lu Yurong nodded slowly. If I didn't drag him down, Chu Li could have escaped unscathed. She shook her head. She originally wanted to help, but she became a burden. It was not a good feeling. Next time, we'll get him back. Xiaomei smiled. Miss, the Empyrean fairy power you cultivate is extremely mysterious, and your progress is extremely fast. You'll definitely beat him. Yes. Lu Yurong nodded. The scripture of great light was a technique passed down from the outland, and the Empyrean fairy power she cultivated was the same. It would not be inferior to the scripture of great light, as long as she cultivated it well enough. After this, I want to cultivate in isolation, Lu Yurong said. Yes, we'll help you cultivate. The 9 ladies nodded. Lu Yurong lowered her head to look at Chu Li. His breath was getting weaker, almost non-existent. Her face darkened and she frowned. Chu Li's injuries were constantly worsening, but she could not do anything about it. Call father over, Lu Yurong said hurriedly. Xiaomei responded and fluttered away. Chu Li, Lu Yurong suddenly called out. She felt Chu Li's breath suddenly dissipate, as if he had completely disappeared from the world. She quickly put her hand in front of his mouth and nose, and found that he was no longer breathing. He had actually died. She formed a seal with her hands, and then activated her heart technique. A ray of light from the sky fell on her. Her body was warm, as if she had turned into a piece of white jade, emitting a warm luster. Miss, the ladies cried out. The maid named Xiao Jiao quickly said, Miss, you're so heavily injured, you can't use your secret skill. Chapter 700. Lu Yurong's face was as white as jade. Her eyes were cold as stars as she looked at her. The ladies knew it was too late to stop her. They could only watch. Lu Yurong extended her fingers and poked Chu Li's chest twice. She frowned and stopped. The energy entered his body. It was like entering a piece of wood. Chu Li's body was like a withered tree. His acupuncture points had disappeared. She took a deep breath and continued. She poked 36 times in one go. Then, she formed a mudra with her hands and the light around her slowly dissipated. The warm glow slowly disappeared from her body. She spat out another mouthful of blood. Lady Master is here. Xiaomei called from afar. High Duke Lu wore a green tunic. He looked handsome and carefree. He strode to the gazebo. Seeing Lu Yurong's pale face and unfocused gaze, he scoffed. Nonsense. He stretched out his palm and patted her back, transferring a thick stream of inner energy to her. Lu Yurong was energized. Her eyes lit up. Father! Don't worry. Head Chief Chu Li cannot die in our residence. High Duke Lu scoffed. He touched Chu Li's wrist and pressed on his chest. He frowned and retracted his hand. He shook his head. It's too late. He turned his head. Did he consume the adversity-surpassing pill? Yes. Xiao Mei nodded. High Duke Lu reached into Chu Li's pocket. He took out a jade bottle and poured out 5 dark green pills. This is the spirit blessing pill from the E-Public House. He stuffed one into Chu Li's mouth. Logically, as long as he has not died for more than 6 hours, the spirit blessing pill can save him. But if he still dies after consuming the adversity-surpassing pill, then this is his fate. Not even the gods can save him. Father! Lu Yurong was annoyed. High Duke Lu said, Little girl, life and death are up to fate. We don't even care about our own lives, let alone someone else's. He had seen enough of life and death. His tone was relaxed as if the one who died was just an ant. Lu Yurong glared at him. Why? You really like this kid? High Duke Lu was stunned. Lu Yurong scoffed. He only ended up like this because he tried to save me. If it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have been injured, and he wouldn't have died. A hero saving a damsel in distress. High Duke Lu nodded. He's a man. Lu Yurong asked, Can he be saved? She had great confidence in Chu Li. She had always felt that Chu Li was the kind of person who would not die even if others died. Even when she saw Chu Li take his last breath, she had a feeling that Chu Li's survival was just a joke. High Duke Lu shook his head and said, Looks like it's hopeless. Impossible. Lu Yurong shook her head. High Duke Lu checked Chu Li's mouth and nose, then touched his chest. He shook his head and said, His heart is not beating, his breath is not coming out, and his body is starting to stiffen. He's really dead. That's impossible. Lu Yurong scoffed as she approached Chu Li and touched his wrist. Blood was dripping from the corner of her mouth. The secret technique she had used just now had aggravated her injuries. Pressing his finger down, he found that there was no longer any rebound from the berserk strength. Pushing his inner force in, he found that it was like a block of wood devoid of life. Lu Yurong gritted her teeth and shook her head. He can't be dead. Chu Li's smile seemed to be right in front of her. Looking at the corpse in front of her, it did not seem like a person. She could not believe that this was real. Anyone can die. High Duke Lu patted her shoulder and sighed. His daughter had finally fallen in love with a man, but she was about to lose him again. She would never be able to open her heart again. She would have to live the rest of her life alone and die alone. As for Chu Li's death, he was not too affected. There were many young talents who died every year. Chu Li was not one of them. Others could die, but not Chu Li? Let him rest in peace. Bury him as soon as possible. He said gently, If he dies, then he dies. It's not a big deal. Lu Yurong shook her head. He won't die. You. High Duke Lu looked at her stubborn expression and did not try to persuade her anymore. He said gently, Heal your wounds first. Do you want to go with him? Then what should I do as his father? Lu Yurong turned to look at him. Don't worry, I'm fine. She took a deep breath and said faintly, I haven't gotten my revenge yet. That's right. High Duke Lu sighed in relief and said gently, Let's get our revenge first. After this period, no matter how sad it was, it would fade away. No matter how strong the feelings were, they would not be able to withstand the erosion of time. Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda widened their eyes and looked at the 3 Ning brothers who were dejected. Lost him? Fu Mengshan touched his chin and said gently, Why did you lose him? The Ning family's tracking technique is the best in the world. After a huge battle, Gu Qi disappeared. Ning Buiyuan said, Commander, we suspect that a master took him away. This person's light body technique is superb, we can't catch up. So, Gu Qi is not dead? Fu Mengshan frowned and looked at Ning Boyuan. If he's not dead, we're doomed. Ning Boyuan said, Gu Qi must have been injured. The blood left there is his. Maybe he's already dead. If not, there would be other people's blood at the scene, Ning Zhongyuan said. Ning Boyuan shook his head. The most likely possibility is that Gu Qi is not dead. He was taken away by a master. What about young Chu? Fu Mengshan turned his head and said, Elder Su, looks like we still need young Chu to do this. His tracking technique is better. Su Huanda shook his head. We didn't find him. He probably didn't listen to us and went after him secretly. That's good. Young Chu shouldn't have any dirt in his eyes. Fu Mengshan smiled. Ning Boyuan frowned. Since the Centurion took action, it's very likely that it was the Centurion and the Master who escorted Gu Qi. It's impossible for anyone else to catch up to Gu Qi. Only the Centurion could be one step ahead of us. Yes. Ning Zhongyuan nodded. Ning Jiuan did not say a word. Young Chu didn't come back. Looks like he didn't succeed. This time, the Holy Church of Light will not repeat the same mistake and let young Chu kill to his heart's content. Young Chu might be in danger. Fu Mengshan sighed. They did not let Chu Li go after Gu Qi because they were worried about this. The Holy Church of Light would not suffer the same loss twice. This time, they must have sent a top-notch master who could take care of Chu Li. Chu Li is very smart. He won't die so easily. Su Huanda said. Fu Mengshan nodded. All right then, let's wait for young Chu's good news. After they dispersed, they could only wait for Chu Li's news. The Secret Guardians Hall could not do much other than chase after Gu Qi. As the days passed, the pressure on the Secret Guardians Hall increased. 5 days had passed and there was still no sign of Chu Li. His light body technique was peerless. After killing Gu Qi, he could return within a day. He could run back and forth a few times in 5 days. If he still did not return, it would be bad. Xiao Shi sent someone to ask about Chu Li's situation the next day. No matter how busy Chu Li was, no matter what he had to do, he would always use God's limbs to meet her. Even after the incident at Crouching Bull Mountain, he would still come and greet her every day. Chapter 701. The 7 days set by the Emperor are almost up. Su Huanda sat in the main hall of the Secret Guardians Hall and said to Fu Mengshan, We're going to fail this time. Fu Mengshan sat in the armchair without saying a word. The atmosphere in the hall was oppressive. Chen Donghai was restless and wanted nothing more than to leave. However, this was related to his own mistake, so he could not leave. He could only endure it here. After a while, Fu Mengshan said slowly, There's still no news from that side? No. Su Huanda shook his head. But it's a little strange. Yes, it's a little weird. Fu Mengshan nodded. If nothing had happened to Gu Qi, the Li dynasty would have spread the news to the entire nation long ago, letting everyone know that a minister-counselor from the Ji dynasty had defected to the Li dynasty to boost the confidence of the people of the Li dynasty. But there was no news from the Dali kingdom at all. The secret guardians of the Secret Guardians Hall could not enter the Holy Church of Light, but they could obtain information about the Li dynasty's imperial court. There was no news from the imperial court of Dali about Gu Qi. Based on the timing, Gu Qi should have already entered the Li dynasty's territory, so there was no need for him to be afraid of being assassinated by the Ji dynasty. What should have been announced had already been announced. It would be strange if there was no news at all, so it was very likely that Gu Qi had not entered the Li dynasty. It was only because of this glimmer of hope that they were able to keep their composure. Otherwise, they would have already gone to the imperial palace to beg for forgiveness. They wouldn't have clenched their teeth and endured the 7 days that the emperor had given them. Maybe young Chu succeeded. Fu Mengshan sighed. He died together with his enemy. I don't think Chu Li is dead. Su Huanda shook his head. If he had fallen into their hands, they would have made a big fuss. Chu Li of the south and Du Feng of the north. Chu Li's reputation was not small. Fu Mengshan nodded. Young Chu succeeded, but he was severely injured. I don't know where he hid to recuperate. That's very likely, Su Huanda said. Fu Mengshan chuckled and said, another great contribution. Little Chu is really a lucky star. This can't go on. Su Huanda shook his head. If we really kill Gu Qi this time, the Holy Church of Light will retaliate crazily. It's not a joke. That's true, there's still a long way to go, Fu Mengshan said. When we get back, we should persuade him to take a break and honestly go into closed-door training for a period of time. Su Huanda nodded. Footsteps suddenly sounded. Liang strode in and cupped his fists. Commander Su. He handed a sealed bamboo tube to Fu Mengshan. Fu Mengshan opened the wax seal and unfolded the paper slip that had been rolled up into a ball. After reading it, his expression relaxed and he passed it to Su Huanda with a chuckle. Su Huanda also smiled after he saw it. He shook his head and said, "Good lad, he really killed him." Fu Mengshan chuckled and said, "It's an amazing achievement, we have to reward him properly." Chen Donghai hurriedly asked, Commander Su, has Gu Qi been killed?" "Yes, Chu Li saved you this time." Fu Mengshan smiled and said, "If little Chu hadn't risked his life to kill Gu Qi, you'd be better off guarding the Imperial Mausoleum." "What about Centurion Chu? He might have found a place to recuperate." Fu Mengshan said, "He's smart. As long as he's not killed on the spot, he should be able to escape with his life. I reckon he'll be back in a few days." "How fortunate!" Chen Donghai heaved a long sigh of relief. He finally didn't have to guard the Imperial Mausoleum anymore. Thank the heavens! The days of guarding the Imperial Mausoleum were worse than being imprisoned. They would be crippled for the rest of their lives, living a life worse than death. Fu Mengshan stood up and said, "I'll go to the Imperial Palace immediately. Elder Su, send more people to find out more about Chu Li." Su Huanda nodded. A bright moon hung in the sky. The night was hazy. Lu Yurong sat quietly in the gazebo. Her eyes fell on Chu Li's face and did not move for a long time. Chu Li was lying on the stone table in the gazebo with his face facing the sky. He was not breathing and his body was stiff, no different from a dead person. Xiao Mei and the others sat beside the gazebo to protect him, afraid that Lu Yurong's injury would worsen. Their worries came true. Lu Yurong's injury was affected by her mood. It lingered and seemed to worsen. Lu Yushu was dressed in a white tunic. He strolled with his hands behind his back and slowly entered the gazebo. He glanced at Lu Yurong. "Little sister, the dead can't come back to life. It's been 7 days. His soul should have left. Let's bury him and let him rest." Lu Yurong shook her head. Lu Yushu helplessly sat next to her and sighed. "You can't have fallen for this kid, right?" Lu Yurong retracted her gaze from Chu Li's face and glanced at him. "No." "Really?" Lu Yushu smiled. "I know you were lying to us earlier. Don't make it real." Lu Yurong shook her head. Lu Yushu said, "Because he saved you, you fell for him?" Lu Yurong frowned. "Second brother, hurry up and leave. Let me have some peace and quiet. Chu Li is already dead. It's useless for you to fall for him." Lu Yushu said. "But I know that people tend to remember their kindness when they die. It's easier to move people's hearts. You have to be careful. You're so annoying." Lu Yurong snapped. "I can't be bothered to talk to you. Let me have some peace and quiet." Lu Yushu said. "You've been quiet for a few days." Lu Yurong waved her hand. "Get lost." Lu Yushu saw that her face had darkened. She was really annoyed. He knew that his jokes were useless. He shook his head and stood up. "All right. Don't be too sad. Life and death are normal in the martial arts world. We will die too. You're not an ordinary woman." "Who said he's dead?" Lu Yurong scoffed. She waved her hand and ignored him. Lu Yushu sighed. Little sister seemed to have fallen for Chu Li. It was a pity that she couldn't accept the fact that he was dead. He glanced at Chu Li on the stone table and prepared to leave. He suddenly stopped in his tracks. A gust of wind blew. Everyone was caught off guard. They swayed and quickly steadied themselves. Amidst the howling wind, the wind howled. The flowers and grass around them bowed in the direction of the gazebo. It was as if they were worshipping their king. The trees in the distance rustled and bent over. The leaves rustled. It was as if Chu Li had created an endless suction force. Everything around him was sucked in. Everyone was able to stabilize themselves. The wind, sand, pebbles, leaves, and petals rushed over. Chu Li was instantly wrapped inside. They couldn't see his figure. Lu Yushu held onto a pillar. He squinted his eyes. The women waved their sleeves to block the incoming debris. They stared at Chu Li without blinking. Bam! A muffled sound was heard. Sand, pebbles, and leaves were sent flying. Chu Li slowly floated up. He stopped 3 feet above the stone table. He was right above everyone's head. His hair fluttered. His purple robe fluttered. The vast power surged around his body like the waves of the sea, wave after wave. Chu Li suddenly opened his eyes. A green light flashed in his eyes. It quickly disappeared. His eyes regained their clarity. The sharpness of a martial arts master could not be seen. He slowly straightened his body. His feet slowly landed on the ground. The mighty force disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had never been there. Seeing everyone staring at him, Chu Li smiled. He looked at Lu Yurong. How long did I sleep? Lu Yurong took a deep breath. She suppressed her surging emotions. 7 days. 7 days. Chu Li shook his head. You must be panicking. Lu Yurong scoffed. Why would I be? Chu Li frowned. Are your injuries not healed yet? He took a step to Lu Yurong's side. He patted her on the back. That ball of great light scripture inner energy was burning like a flame. When Chu Li's palm touched it, it seemed to have found its master. It quickly entered his palm and was swallowed by the heavenly demonic orb. Lu Yurong felt relaxed. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Fang Qingyang's great light scripture inner energy was very strange. It was clearly extinguished, but it quickly reappeared as if it was immortal. Chapter 702. Chu Li glanced at the ladies and Lu Yushu smiled. Second young master is here too. Lu Yushu scoffed. You're finally back alive. Chu Li nodded. I slept a little too long. You're not sleeping, you're dead. Lu Yushu said. It's the same as dying. Luckily little sister insisted on not burying you, or else you would have been buried. You wouldn't have survived even if you wanted to. Chu Li smiled and looked at Lu Yurong. You think I'm not dead? Lu Yurong nodded lightly. You're not that short-lived. Chu Li said. It was a close call to escape from death. But those who survive a disaster are bound to have good fortune. Our good days are yet to come. Let's talk next time. I'll go back first. Treat your injury well. We'll have our revenge sooner or later. Lu Yurong nodded slowly. This time they suffered too much, almost losing their lives. This revenge must be avenged. Chu Li closed fist, saluted at the ladies, smiled, stepped onto the treetop and left with the wind, disappearing into the night. Lu Yushu scoffed. He left so quickly. He carefully looked at Lu Yurong's face, to see if there was any reluctance, attachment, or if she was really moved by Chu Li. He was disappointed. Lu Yurong's expression was calm, there was no change in her face, there was no sign of her being moved at all. Even this could not move little sister's heart. It seemed like little sister really did not like men. Father must be worried. Little sister can forget about having a man. Lu Yurong retracted her gaze and looked at the 9 ladies. We'll start isolated cultivation today. My lady, your injury? Xiao Mei asked worriedly. Is it okay? Lu Yurong shook her head. It's healed. Xiao Mei was surprised. Young Master Chu healed it just now? Lu Yurong said. Let's go. Chu Li's palm was very magical. Not only did it sweep away the inner energy of the great light scripture, it also injected a rich force at the same time. The injury quickly healed. In just a short while, it was almost healed. Such a miraculous recovery speed was really shocking. The force he transferred was very magical, not inferior to the effect of the adversity-surpassing pill. No wonder he was able to escape death and come back to life. Within 2 years, he had soared to the sky. He must have his own big secret, and this rapid healing technique should be his big secret. This time, he used it on himself, which meant that he trusted him even more. Chu Li suddenly appeared in Tianshu courtyard. The sound of the zither was sonorous and the rhythm was a bit messy. The person playing the zither was absent-minded. The sound of the zither and the spirit were not together. Xiao Shi was dressed in a white gown with her hair draped over her shoulders. She was sitting in front of the stone table in the courtyard, playing the guqin with her head lowered. Menglan and Yang Su stood beside her, looking at her worriedly. In a flash, Chu Li appeared in front of them. The two ladies immediately looked over in surprise. "Manager!" Chu Li smiled and nodded. He looked at Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi raised her head abruptly and the sound of the guzheng stopped abruptly. Chu Li smiled. "Lady, I'm back. You still know to come back." Xiao Shi glared at him coldly and continued to play the zither, ignoring him. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Yang Su and Menglan looked at him excitedly. Chu Li smiled and waved his hand, gesturing for them to leave. The two girls curtsied and left quietly. Only Chu Li and Xiao Shi were left in the courtyard. Xiao Shi was still playing the guqin with her head lowered. The sound of the guqin was loud and clear. The atmosphere was completely different from before. Chu Li came to the stone table and sat down. He faced Xiao Shi and looked at her beautiful face. After coming back from the dead, he felt that the world was clearer and richer. The colors were bright and eye-catching. Xiao Shi was even more beautiful than before. Xiao Shi raised her head and glared at him. Her deep eyes flashed and her gaze was clear and threatening. Chu Li smiled. "We have to go." "Go!" The sound of the guqin stopped abruptly. Xiao Shi frowned at him. Chu Li said, "We've offended the Holy Church of Light this time. I think they'll come for revenge soon." "Offended this group of lunatics again?" Xiao Shi said impatiently. "Are you tired of living? You've been living too comfortably." Chu Li sighed. "I have no choice this time. The minister-counselor of the Ministry of War, Gu Qi, is a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. He wanted to escape back to the Li dynasty. If I don't kill him, the Ji dynasty won't have a good time. Let's go hide in Qingyun town first." "All right." Xiao Shi scoffed. "What about you?" She knew that Chu Li was calm and decisive. He did not want to offend the Holy Church of Light, but he would not hesitate if he had to. Chu Li said, "I'll wait here." "What happened this time?" Xiao Shi asked. "Are you hurt?" Chu Li said, "Let's go there first. We'll talk about it later." Xiao Shi nodded. Chu Li quickly sent the three women to a small courtyard in Qingyun town. It was late at night. Chu Li talked to Xiao Shi in the small courtyard and told her everything that happened. Xiao Shi was smarter than most people. She had read many books and was knowledgeable. Her knowledge far surpassed his. Although his mind was faster than ordinary people, his knowledge and experience were still far behind Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi would often come up with useful ideas, so Chu Li did not hide anything from her. He would discuss things with her in detail. The bright moon shone down. There were only 2 lanterns in the small courtyard. The light was dim. Xiao Shi bathed in the moonlight. She was as holy as a fairy. "A priest." Xiao Shi frowned. The Holy Church of Light has 4 guardian priests, 16 altar leaders, and 36 patrols. A priest is already a top-notch master. To be able to escape with your life from him, it's quite a feat. "What's above the guardian priest?" Chu Li asked. Xiao Shi said, "The saint and then the bishop." Chu Li frowned. "The saint's martial arts is above the priest?" Yes. Seo sure nodded. Don't think that just because you're a woman, your martial arts is weak. I heard that the saint's martial arts is rare. She's almost invincible below the enlightened master. The saint is the official disciple of the Holy Church of Light. She'll be the next bishop. Chuli was shocked. Is the bishop of the Holy Church of Light a woman? Of course she's a woman. Seo Shu's eyes flickered. Don't you know? Chuli said, this is the Great Light Scripture. It's a Buddhist martial arts that visualizes Mahavairokkana. How can it be a woman? Why can't it be a woman? Seo Shu said impatiently. Can't women cultivate Buddhist martial arts? Chuli shook his head and laughed. He had always thought that since the bishop of the Holy Church of Light was an enlightened master, he should be a man of great talent and strategy. He did not expect the bishop to be a woman. A female enlightened master. Chuli shook his head and sighed. It's hard to imagine. Seo Shu scoffed. Deep down, you still look down on women. You'll be at a disadvantage. Not to mention little sister. How many men can compare to Lu Yurong? Chuli nodded slowly. You can't even defeat a priest. Don't even think about fighting the saint. Seo Shu said. That's why it's unrealistic for you to go against the Holy Church of Light. It's better for you to cultivate and not mess around. Chuli smiled bitterly. Even if he had advanced another level of the life and death scripture, he was not confident that he could defeat Fang Qingyang. Chapter 703. But the saint won't simply come to the Ji dynasty. Once the news is leaked, the Tempest Temple won't let go of the opportunity. Killing the saint is equivalent to killing the next bishop. It'll be a huge loss to the Holy Church of Light. It's not easy to produce a saint. Isn't the saint a member of the royal family? Chuli asked. Seo Shu shook her head. The saintess is selected within the borders of the Li dynasty through a special secret technique. The Holy Church of Light has a set of special secret techniques to select the saintess. The person selected has unparalleled qualifications, and after being personally trained by the bishop of the Holy Church of Light, her martial arts skills are unparalleled. Once the bishop of the Holy Church of Light leaves the world and heads to the outland, the saintess will challenge the world's top masters. She will be invincible and become an enlightened master in one go. Chuli frowned. No matter how confident he was, he dared not say that his qualifications were the best. The Holy Church of Light used a secret technique to find the most talented woman in the Li dynasty. Then, an enlightened master would personally train her. She would be taught mystical martial arts and would be taught by a famous master. It would be extremely difficult for others to catch up to the saint. He could imagine that this was passed down from generation to generation. Every bishop of the Holy Church of Light had received the method of training disciples from the previous bishop. Every generation was more perfect than the other factions. The most talented would have the highest starting point. Having an enlightened master as a master would be even better. The saint trained in this way would naturally be extremely powerful. It was only natural for her to become an enlightened master. Seo Shu said, the current saint is Princess Mingyu of the Li dynasty. Chuli nodded slowly. He had heard of this name before, but he did not know much about it. The information from the secret guardians hall was limited too. This Princess Mingyu was very mysterious and rarely showed her face. They only knew from rumors that she was extremely beautiful. As the saint of the Holy Church of Light, she had always been cultivating in isolation at the Great Light Peak. Very few people had seen her face. Seo Shu sighed. The Holy Church of Light is the Li dynasty's national religion. Now that the princess is the saint, the relationship between the two is even closer. With the help of the Li dynasty and the second half of the Great Light Scripture, the Holy Church of Light is getting stronger. It's only a matter of time before it surpasses the Tempest Temple. It can't be helped. Chuli shook his head. No one can stop it. The four great sects are not doing anything. Xiao Shi scoffed. He clearly knows that he can't let the Holy Church of Light continue to grow stronger, as it will endanger the martial arts world of the great Ji dynasty, but he doesn't want to send anyone to the Li dynasty. He can't afford the loss. Chu Li replied, "It's understandable. Look at how many masters the Holy Church of Light lost when they invaded the Ji dynasty. He had already killed quite a number of grandmasters from the Holy Church of Light. If the four major sects were to secretly attack him, more masters would die. It would be the same for the four major sects if they went to the Great Li dynasty. A powerful dragon would not be able to suppress a snake in its own territory, and they would be at a great disadvantage if they went to the other party's territory. After another 10 years, I'm afraid that the Holy Church of Light will become even stronger, and they'll be the only one in power. When that time comes..." Xiao Shi shook her head and sighed. "I don't know what will happen." "Lady, you worry too much." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "What the four major sects lack is not mystical or ultimate skills, but people who cultivate martial arts." "Sigh. I hope so," Xiao Shi said. Chu Li remained silent. Xiao Shi's eyes flickered. "You're going back tonight?" Chu Li nodded. "The people from the Holy Church of Light won't give up so easily. I have to take a look." "Go." Xiao Shi waved her hand. "I'll stay here for a few days and have a good rest." She had been worried for the past few days, and did not show it in front of Chu Li. Her heart had been hanging in the air, but now that she was finally relieved, she felt lazy and did not want to move at all. Chu Li smiled and nodded. He got up and disappeared in a flash. The night was dark and the moon hung in the middle of the night sky. Chu Li was immersed in the life and death scripture when spiritual energy surged in from all directions and turned into Cloud Slashing Power's inner energy. It circulated along the heart technique of Cloud Slashing Power and became purer. He had advanced to another level of the life and death scripture. He had yet to understand the other changes, but the most obvious one was the expansion of its range. The original 500-meter radius was now 1,000 meters. The extracted spiritual energy was much purer than before and the vitality was much stronger. After he extracted spiritual energy and circulated it into his body, one circulation of Cloud Slashing Power was equivalent to circulating it 10 times before. The degree of purity was obvious. He estimated that his speed of catalyzing spirit herbs to mature would be 10 times faster than before. Healing with spiritual energy would also be 10 times more effective. The advancement of the life and death scripture had imperceptibly increased the purity and power of Cloud Slashing Power. He should be able to put up a fight against Fang Qingyang. With the advancement of the life and death scripture, the observation range of the omniscient mirror had also expanded significantly. Everything within a 6-mile radius could be clearly seen. The omniscient mirror was observing its surroundings and felt that it was much clearer than before. Suddenly, its field of vision brightened as a scorching sun appeared, rolling in from the west. The omniscient mirror did not crack this time, and was still able to observe this scorching sun clearly. It was Fang Qingyang. Fang Qingyang's body was like a stream of light and was unbelievably fast. He crossed the 6-mile distance in the blink of an eye and arrived at King An's imperial residence. Chu Li let out a soft whistle. "No one is allowed to come out." This long whistle resounded throughout King An's imperial residence and reached everyone's ears clearly. Fang Qingyang appeared in Chu Li's courtyard like a flash of light and looked at Chu Li calmly with his hands behind his back. Chu Li opened his eyes and looked at him. Fang Qingyang was dressed in a green tunic and had a noble bearing. His eyes shone like cold stars and his gaze seemed solid. "You're really alive," Fang Qingyang said lightly. Chu Li stood up. "Thanks to you, I'm still alive. This time, I'm here to take your life." Fang Qingyang glanced around and said, "I heard that you're very concerned about Princess Xiao. I don't want to use such despicable means, but if you really want to escape, I'll have to kill Princess Xiao." Chu Li smiled. Princess Xiao has already left. Where can she go? Fang Qingyang said lightly. It's nothing more than the High Duke's public house. It's the same if I go to the High Duke's public house to kill her. Can you stop me? Chu Li shook his head. She's not in the High Duke's public house either. Then kill the people from the public house, Fang Qingyang said. You're from the High Duke's public house, so you must be concerned about them? Don't force me. Chu Li scoffed. All right, you kill the people from the High Duke's public house, and I'll kill the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. I'd like to see who kills more people. Fang Qingyang frowned. Many of the Holy Church of Light's disciples had died by Chu Li's hands. He was not joking when it came to killing the Holy Church's disciples. He really deserved to die. When he thought of this, his murderous intent intensified and he said lightly, All right, then let's decide who's the winner. Chu Li said, That's exactly what I wanted. As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared behind Fang Qingyang in a flash and activated imminent skyline. Fang Qingyang disappeared in a flash. Their figures flickered like two shadows, drifting erratically under the moonlight at an incredible speed. Swoosh! Two flashes of light shot toward Chu Li. This time, Fang Qingyang did not disappear. He stood on the spot and waited for Chu Li to appear behind him. Then, he swung his blade at him from a very close distance. The blade hit Chu Li in an instant. The purplish-golden brilliance flashed. Chu Li did not dodge and swung his blade as well. Swoosh! Both of them were hit almost at the same time. Chapter 704. P.S. Over. Chu Li swung his blade again. Fang Qingyang disappeared in a flash and the flying blade pierced through the air. Before he disappeared, he shot a blade at Chu Li. Chu Li also disappeared in a flash and the light blade missed. The heavenly demonic orb fell to his precordium and endless energy surged around him. The wound quickly stopped bleeding and gradually closed up. The heavenly demonic body was so strong that this small injury was not worth mentioning. The life and death scripture channeled extremely pure spiritual energy from heaven and earth. More than half of it was channeled into the cloud slashing power, while the other half entered the wound to speed up the healing. Fang Qingyang felt that the light blade and his flying blade were evenly matched. It was slightly faster but was offset by his fearlessness. If this went on, Chu Li would be injured and he would not be able to hold on. Chu Li had a strong physique. The last time he was hit by the blade, he did not die. After that, he suffered another blade and a few divine light fists. If it were anyone else, they would have died a few times. However, Chu Li was full of vigor in just 7 days. He was obviously gifted and Fang Qingyang could not compete with him in this. His biggest advantage was his cultivation level. The inner energy of the divine light scripture was profound and superior to Chu Li. Therefore, he used a divine light fist with all his might. It was enough to kill a grandmaster. He had to get rid of Chu Li as soon as possible. Chu Li used his cloud slashing palm. After a muffled bang, their fists and palms collided. Then, as if their fists and palms were glued together, they began to compete with their inner energy. Fang Qingyang's fist force from the divine light fist rushed into Chu Li's palm. The heavenly demonic orb had fallen to his precordium and could not devour this fist force. Chu Li could only use the inner energy of the cloud slashing power to wrap around it and devour it. In a short while, the fist force of the divine light fist was devoured and turned into extremely pure cloud slashing power inner energy. Their inner energy clashed with each other, like two groups of soldiers charging at each other. Chu Li's cloud slashing power inner energy was slightly less pure than Fang Qingyang's. Moreover, Fang Qingyang's inner energy was so powerful that Chu Li was forced to retreat. The inner energy clashed from his palm to his wrist, then to his arm and shoulder. When their inner energy clashed on their shoulders, Chu Li regained some of his disadvantage. His dantian and meridians were not as wide as Fang Qingyang's, but the divine light body was unique in that his meridians were extremely wide, as though his entire body was made up of meridians. His inner energy was as vast as the ocean, and his meridians did not pose any obstruction. Chu Li's meridians were wide enough, but they paled in comparison to the divine light body. Fortunately, he had an endless supply of spiritual energy. Chu Li's meridians were sturdy, but they were narrower than the divine light body. It was like two groups of soldiers crossing swords in a narrow valley. Fang Qingyang's soldiers were elite and their formation was solid, but the valley was narrow, so they were unable to unleash their full advantage. Chu Li's soldiers were not elite enough, but they were able to exhaust them endlessly. When one wave died, another wave would rush up, and they would fight to the death without retreating. They were purely relying on their numbers to stop Fang Qingyang's soldiers from advancing. Fang Qingyang stared at him with a sneer at the corner of his lips. He activated his inner energy endlessly and pressed forward. He did not believe that Chu Li would be able to hold on for too long. Chu Li gradually could not hold on anymore. Even though his inner energy was boundless, it could not compare to the purity of Fang Qingyang's. He slowly retreated, from his shoulder to his precordium. Chu Li gritted his teeth and abruptly withdrew his heavenly demonic body. The heavenly demonic orb instantly appeared in his precordium. The next moment, it appeared in front of the great light scripture's inner energy that was surging toward him and swallowed it. The immense pressure was suddenly lifted, and the cloud-slashing power's inner energy was once again pushed into his palm. Then, the heavenly demonic orb appeared on his wrist and continuously absorbed the great light scripture's inner energy. Fang Qingyang felt that Chu Li's body was like a bottomless pit. The inner energy that was pouring into him was like a clay ox entering the sea. This aroused his arrogance and stubbornness. He wanted to see if he could burst. Chu Li ignored Fang Qingyang's inner energy and only activated the cloud-slashing power's inner energy to make it purer and purer. He also diverted his attention to channel spiritual energy to nourish his wounds. One cycle after another, the cloud-slashing power continued to purify that inner energy, preventing the heavenly demonic orb from devouring it. It only circulated in his body one cycle after another, purifying it over and over again. In the end, this inner energy turned into a thin thread that floated in his meridians like hair. However, his meridians were aching faintly. This thin thread was like lightning, and wherever it swam, his meridians felt as if they were being burned. As time passed, the bright moon slowly moved in the night sky. 2 hours later, both Chu Li and Fang Qingyang were brimming with energy and were not tired at all. 4 hours later, both of them were still brimming with energy. 6 hours later, the sky was bright, but the two of them were still in tiredness, their eyes shining brightly. Ling Qiu and Ling Qin pushed open the door and entered the courtyard. When they saw the two of them standing motionless with their fists and palms pressed against each other, they immediately stopped and looked at Fang Qingyang cautiously. Chu Li gave them a look. "Come in, this is the Holy Church of Light's priest Fang Qingyang. You two practice your swordsmanship." The Holy Church of Light? The two women's expressions changed slightly. Chu Li said, "Fang Qingyang, you can't do it anymore. You can't beat me." Fang Qingyang frowned. "Not necessarily. It's wishful thinking to exhaust my inner energy," Chu Li said. "My greatest strength is the depth of my inner energy." "Same," Fang Qingyang said calmly. "Chu Li, it's such a pity. You're so talented, but you're going to die by my fist." Chu Li scoffed. "I'd like to see who dies by whose hand." He pointed his right index finger at Fang Qingyang and performed the spear finger strike. Wherever his inner energy passed through, the meridians in his entire arm were injured. This purest inner energy turned into a finger force and shot towards Fang Qingyang. Fang Qingyang countered with a punch. Bang! With a muffled sound, both of them took a step back. Fang Qingyang's expression changed slightly as he felt a bolt of lightning shooting into his fist and into his precordium. His heavy inner energy could not stop him as it crumbled bit by bit and kept closing in on his precordium. He frowned and scoffed. "What martial art is this? Soul-devouring finger," Chu Li said calmly. "It's a martial art that I created myself. What do you think?" A flash of a sword suddenly rose from his waist. The flash of the sword condensed into a cold star and pierced towards Fang Qingyang's throat. Fang Qingyang flicked his finger. Ding! The long sword was deflected. Fang Qingyang turned into a flash of light and left. A shout came from afar. "I'll be back!" Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief and immediately turned to enter the house. He sat cross-legged on the bed and channeled to heal his injuries. His meridians quickly recovered under the nourishment of the spiritual energy from heaven and earth. After 2 hours, he was completely healed and the wound on his chest had also healed. Although it was not fully recovered, it did not hinder his movements. He opened his eyes and looked exhausted. This fight could be said to be physically and mentally exhausting. He had used his brain and inner energy to their limits and had fully utilized his advantages. If he had made a mistake in his calculations, he would have ended up running for his life again. He had first used Imminent Skyline and the Eternity Blade to force Fang Qingyang to compete with his inner energy. If Fang Qingyang had not underestimated his opponent, he would not have competed with his inner energy. The heavenly demonic orb transformed from the heavenly demonic power had offset his disadvantage. In addition to that finger force that hurt both others and himself, Fang Qingyang had finally been scared off. He might not be so lucky next time. He still had to cultivate diligently and not rely on his intelligence to win by trickery. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. The heavenly demonic orb had devoured a lot of inner energy, more than what he had cultivated diligently for a month. In the small courtyard, Ling Qiu and Ling Qing were resting by the stone table, wiping the sweat off their foreheads. When they saw him come out, the two women smiled and said, "Head Chief, did you defeat that fellow, the priest of the Holy Church of Light?" Chu Li nodded. "I was lucky enough to retreat once, but it might not happen again. You two shouldn't have come." Fang Qingyang was still a character and would not stoop to hurting two weak women like them. Otherwise, the two of them would be taking the spirit blessing pill right now. Ling Qing said, "I heard that there was no movement here, so I thought it was over." Chu Li sighed. "Don't come here for a few days, I'm afraid he'll come again." That spear finger strike could not really hurt Fang Qingyang. He would definitely be dissatisfied and come again. Through just 2 battles, he could tell that Fang Qingyang's character was somewhat like what the future generations would call a perfectionist and a paranoid person. Once you start doing something, you must finish it and it must be done perfectly. Since he wanted to kill him, he would definitely do so and would not give up halfway. Chapter 705. P.S. The birth of the 29th Alliance, the leader's fiery passion. He sat on the couch, thinking about the gap between himself and Fang Qingyang. The depth of inner energy was not important, as the life and death scripture could make up for it, but the purity could not. The cloud-slashing power purified inner energy over and over again, and with the life and death scripture, his inner energy was endless. Purifying inner energy was the easiest, as long as he put in some effort to promote the cloud-slashing power. The key now was the meridians. Every time the heavenly demonic power advanced a level, the body would become much stronger, and so would the life and death scripture. This time, after advancing the life and death scripture, his body had also changed, becoming 2 times stronger than before. Otherwise, he would not have been able to use the pure spear finger strike this time. He still had the sentient menace and sun cultivating white tiger portrait to strengthen his body, but because his realm was not deep enough, the strengthening of his body had reached a bottleneck, and it was difficult to go further. He cultivated body refining techniques, and although it was easier to get started than ordinary people, it was difficult to break through once he reached a certain realm. He had been searching for the reason why ancient people could cultivate body refining techniques to such a high realm, but modern people could not even he himself. Unfortunately, he had not found the reason. Comparing the past and present, there were too many factors that affected cultivation, and it was impossible to reach all of them. The most superficial reason he could think of was the difference in the objects of observation. Sun cultivating white tiger portrait required observation of the white tiger. The stronger the white tiger's aura, the faster the progress of the sun cultivating white tiger portrait. He had never seen a white tiger, only tigers in his past life, and ordinary tigers in this life. The white tiger was worlds apart from them, and he had reached his limit, unable to go further. It was impossible to strengthen the meridians with the sentient menace. After the meridian cultivation level, the meridians had been strengthened to the limit, and there were only two ways to strengthen it. One was the sun cultivating white tiger portrait, and the other was the heavenly demonic power. The former would be difficult to progress unless he went to the 100,000 hills to see the white tiger, and the other was the heavenly demonic power. However, the progress of the heavenly demonic power was far, and even with Fang Qingyang's inner energy for a night, it was still far from the next level. It could not be achieved in a short time, and Fang Qingyang would not give him that much time. In the end, he thought of a stupid idea, the life and death scripture. As he pondered, the cloud-slashing power continued to circulate in his circulatory cycle. Finally, a strand of pure inner energy that was as thin as a strand of hair appeared. Wherever it passed, his meridians would feel a faint burning pain. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth flowed into the strand of hair, making it thicker and his meridians more comfortable. He continued to circulate the cloud-slashing power. After a few cycles, he felt a burning pain in his meridians again. The spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth surged into his meridians again. This time, it did not enter his inner energy. Instead, it entered his meridians and nourished them. The spiritual energy transported by the third level of the scripture of life and death was extremely pure and full of vitality. It was extremely nourishing to the meridians, and the burning pain slowly disappeared. Thus, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth entered his hair again. Then, it was purified and burned his meridians. Then, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth entered to nourish his meridians. Through this stupid method, he continuously strengthened his meridians. This kind of stupid method was effective, but there was a limit to the meridians. Once it reached a certain point, no amount of stimulation would work, and the meridians would collapse. He frowned and thought for a while, then suddenly disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared in Qingyun town. Xiao Shi was trimming the flowers in the courtyard. She was dressed in white, and her sleeves were rolled up, revealing half of her fair, jade-like arm. Yang Baoshu's mind was wandering as he stared at her. From time to time, his gaze drifted over to her, but he could not control it. When Yang Baoshu saw Chuli, he immediately gave a fist salute and greeted him. Chuli waved his hand. "How have you been lately?" Yang Baoshu chuckled and scratched his head. His eyes drifted over to Xiao Shi. Chuli smiled. "Yang Su Menglan, both of you stay here. I'll go somewhere else with the princess." "Yes," the two ladies replied. Yang Baoshu was reluctant. "Mr. Chu, you're leaving?" Chuli said, "I'll be back soon. You can't slack off on your agile monkey fist." Yang Baoshu quickly said, "Yes, I just feel that no matter how much I train, I can't improve it." Chuli said, "It'll be better if you experience more fights. There's no need to rush." "Yes." Yang Baoshu nodded solemnly. Chuli held Xiao Shi's wrist. Without the sleeve to cover it, it felt like a white jade in his hand, delicate and warm. The two of them glided away and disappeared from the top of the wall. Yang Baoshu stared at the direction where they disappeared. His face was filled with envy and melancholy. Yang Su chuckled. "Mr. Yang, isn't the princess beautiful?" Yang Baoshu chuckled embarrassedly. "Sister Yang, don't tease me. I'm leaving. Go. Tell sister-in-law Yang not to be so courteous." Yang Su smiled. "My mother is grateful to Mr. Chu. Without Mr. Chu's guidance, I wouldn't be where I am today," Yang Baoshu said. "All right." Yang Su smiled and nodded. She knew the whole story. Without Chu Li's guidance, Yang Baoshu would still be a child. Sister-in-law Yang was good at using her surname. Therefore, when sister-in-law Yang saw them coming, she immediately served them delicious food. She was a good cook, so Xiao Shi and Chu Li enjoyed it. The two of them appeared at the Spirit Crane's peak. As soon as they appeared, two white shadows flashed. Two spirit cranes had already pounced on them. Their long beaks were like swords. Chu Li let go of Xiao Shi and met them with his left and right fists. The divine light fist hit the two beaks, and the fist force of the cloud slashing power drilled into them. Unfortunately, such a powerful fist force could not penetrate their beak. It was blocked once it passed through their beak. Their feathers were tough and smooth. Once the inner force touched the feathers, it was immediately neutralized layer by layer. In the end, it dissipated before it could enter their bodies. Bam, 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 bam. Chu Li and the two cranes were engaged in a fierce battle. Xiao Shi retreated behind a giant tree and used it as a shield to prevent herself from being blown away by the strong wind. The two cranes flapped their wings. Chu Li's fist force surged and formed a strong gale that made it hard for her to open her eyes. After a while, the two cranes let out a clear cry of dissatisfaction. They gave up flapping their wings and stood on the ground to be intimate with Chu Li. Their long beaks kept rubbing against him, trying to rub him down. Chu Li could vaguely feel that they were blaming him for not coming over for so long. Chu Li patted their necks and sat under a tree. Xiao Shi plucked a fruit and ate it. Her mouth was filled with the fragrance, and she was full after eating one. Previously, she had heard from Chu Li that the fruits on the Spirit Crane's peak were extremely delicious, but they were not to the taste of the Spirit Cranes. Since the Spirit Cranes did not eat them, they did not get any for Chu Li and the others to eat. As a result, they had missed the opportunity for a long time. This time, it was indeed fragrant and tempting. Chu Li sat under the tree and channeled the cloud slashing power. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth on the Spirit Crane's peak was 10 times purer than in King An's imperial residence. It was also more nourishing for the meridians. Cultivating the cloud slashing power would save him a lot of effort. He channeled his inner energy for a while and his meridians reached their limit again. He had improved a lot, but this time, he had reached his limit and it was hard for him to improve further. Now that his meridians were at their limit and his inner energy was purified to its limit, it was enough for him to compete with Fang Qingyang. Unfortunately, his inner energy could not suppress him. This would be very troublesome. He knew quite a lot of mystical and antique martial arts. Fang Qingyang was even more so. Even if he beat him with tricks, as long as he did not kill him, Fang Qingyang would not be satisfied and would definitely pester him endlessly. He looked up at the sky. The blue sky was clear and the air was fresh and pleasant. Suddenly, he frowned and whistled. Chapter 706. Chu Li's omniscient mirror saw 4 thumb-sized black snakes flapping their wings as they flew towards the Spirit Crane's peak. Chu Li could feel the malicious intent and killing intent from miles away. They were obviously coming for the Spirit Crane's peak. The 4 thumb-sized black snakes had triangular heads. Their eyes were almost gone, only revealing their huge mouths that almost took up the entire head. They were ugly and ferocious, sending chills down people's spines. The scales on their bodies were fine, emitting a jade-like luster as if there was light flowing within. Their wings were longer than their bodies, making them look like bats. Every flap was as fast as lightning. They traveled 6 miles in 2 breaths and shot towards the 2 spirit cranes in the air. The 2 small cranes cried out and turned around, flashing their claws towards the 4 flying snakes. The 4 flying snakes dodged with a dive and attacked the lower abdomen of the 2 cranes at an incredible speed. The flying snakes were as agile as the white cranes. 2 flying snakes against 1 white crane gave them the upper hand. Although the spirit cranes were as fast as lightning, the flying snakes had the advantage of being smaller and more agile. Chu Li frowned. If this continued, the 2 spirit cranes would be at a disadvantage. He turned to Xiao Shi and said, "I'll send you back first, it's too dangerous." Xiao Shi nodded, "Be careful." "It's okay." Chu Li grabbed Xiao Shi's wrist and disappeared from the spirit crane's peak. He returned to Qing Yun Town in the next moment and returned to the spirit crane's peak alone. As soon as he returned, he saw a flying snake biting the leg of the spirit crane. It refused to let go no matter how hard the spirit crane clawed at it, trying to tear it apart. However, it was very tough. The spirit crane could not tear it apart and it refused to let go. The snake's teeth were poisonous and Chu Li could see that it was injecting poison into the spirit crane's leg. Chu Li let out a soft whistle. The 2 cranes swooped down and rushed towards Chu Li. Chu Li unsheathed his modesty sword and the heavenly demonic orb fell on his precordium. Suddenly, a huge force filled his body. The sword light turned into a cold star and pierced towards the spirit crane that was rushing towards him. The tip of the sword pierced the flying snake that was biting the spirit crane's claw. Chi! An ear-piercing screech could be heard. The flying snake curled up and fell from the crane's claw. Although Chu Li's sword had hit the snake's weak spot, it did not manage to pierce through. It only left a white mark. The spirit crane flapped its wings and pressed it down with its 2 claws. No matter how much it struggled, it pecked at it with its long beak and pierced through its heart. The other 3 flying snakes pounced towards the spirit crane with all their might, but they were blocked by the other spirit crane, not allowing them to get close. They could only watch helplessly as the spirit crane pecked at the snake's weak spot, and the flying snake became limp and motionless. The other 3 flying snakes suddenly changed their direction and shot towards Chu Li. Chu Li disappeared in a flash, and they missed their target. Chu Li appeared behind the 2 spirit cranes to protect himself. He understood that with his abilities, he could only assist the spirit cranes. His modesty sword was completely useless when it landed on their bodies. Even if it pierced the softest part of their body, it would not be able to pierce through. They were extremely protective of their weak spots. If not for the fact that they were not on guard against him during the battle with the spirit cranes, he would not have been able to get his hands on them so easily. Hiss! They bit out their long tongues and let out a sharp hissing sound. 2 of the flying snakes shot towards the 2 cranes, and the other one made a circle and shot towards Chu Li. This was exactly what Chu Li wanted. 1 crane against 1 flying snake would not be at a disadvantage. He stood on the spot and stabbed with his sword. The light of the sword turned into a cold glint and stabbed towards its mouth. Ding! The forked tongue suddenly stabbed out and hit the modesty sword at lightning speed, making a crisp sound of metal colliding. Chu Li's long sword almost fell out of his hand. Fortunately, he was in the heavenly demon body state, so he could hold it tightly. He turned around and stabbed again, this time with an even stronger force. The small flying snake had such a powerful force. Spirit beasts were indeed not what ordinary people could imagine. Ding 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 ding. The forked tongue kept hitting the sword. Chu Li unleashed his swordsmanship to the extreme and stabbed again. His strength increased with each stab, but no matter how strong his strength was, he still could not stop the tongue's attack. On the other side, the 2 cranes and the 2 snakes were also in a stalemate. Suddenly, one of the snakes bit the spirit crane. The spirit crane flew up and Chu Li disappeared in a flash. He appeared under the spirit crane and pointed the tip of his sword at its weak spot. TSS. The flying snake curled up and fell again. The other two flying snakes shot over, wanting to save their companion. Chu-Li and the other spirit crane blocked in front of them. This delay allowed the spirit crane to press its claws on the curled-up flying snake on the ground. With a peck, the snake died. Chu-Li disappeared in a flash. The other two flying snakes wanted to take revenge but could not find him. They turned around and flew away, wanting to escape when they saw that the situation was not good. The two spirit cranes let out a clear cry and chased after him. Chu-Li suddenly appeared in the air and shot two flying knives at the two flying snakes. The flying snakes did not dodge and continued to fly. When the flying knives came close, they realized that the flying knives were going to hit their weak spot. The magical effect of the nature restoration manifestation was demonstrated here. Chu-Li's thoughts were like electricity, a few times faster than usual. After a long period of observation and analysis, he calculated the flying snake's trajectory and shot the flying knives in that direction, waiting for it to hit its weak spot. The two flying snakes helplessly turned their bodies to avoid the flying knife. TSS. Two flying knives shot again, aiming for their weak spot. The two flying snakes dodged again. At this time, the two spirit cranes flew over and grabbed one of the flying snakes at the same time. The other flying snake faced the spirit crane, wanting to share its companion's burden. The spirit crane ignored it and let it bite its leg. TSS. Chu-Li suddenly appeared below the spirit crane and swung his sword at lightning speed. The sword light condensed into a cold star and pierced the flying snake biting the spirit crane's leg. With its weak spot hit, the flying snake curled up and fell. The spirit crane flew down, pressed its claws and pecked with its long beak, killing another snake. There was only one left and it was soon killed by the two spirit cranes and a human. The two spirit cranes each caught two flying snakes and flew back to the spirit crane's peak. After placing the four flying snakes on a large rock, the two spirit cranes each pecked out a small snake gallbladder. Two snake gallbladders were shot at Chu-Li and they ate one each. Chu-Li did not hesitate and swallowed the two warm snake gallbladders. A moment later, a raging flame raged in his body. He recalled the heavenly demonic orb and condensed it above his precordium as his body endured the impact of the two snake gallbladders. He felt as if he was in a sea of fire. The flames burned from the inside out, trying to burn him into ashes. His organs and every strand of hair felt like they were being burned clean. The omniscient mirror immediately cut off his body's senses. Soon, he felt an extreme chill. It was as if he had fallen into an extreme cold, and his entire body was freezing in pain. The omniscient mirror cut off his body's senses again. After about a quarter of an hour, his senses returned to normal. His entire body was numb and itchy as if thousands of ants were biting him. He stood on the spot, his body trembling slightly. It was as if every muscle in his body was trembling separately and not connected to each other. The omniscient mirror allowed him to remain calm and suppress all his senses as he observed his body. The energy from the snake gallbladders kept circulating in his body and changing it. His muscles became compact and tough, his bones became dense and hard, and his meridians also changed slightly, becoming wider and tougher. Even though the omniscient mirror allowed him to remain extremely calm, he still felt a hint of joy. Once his meridians had reached this level and he cultivated the cloud slashing power well, he would be able to cultivate an incomparably pure inner energy and suppress Feng Qingyang. When he thought of this, he felt invigorated. The boiling pain in his body seemed to have disappeared and was replaced by an indescribable sense of comfort. Chapter 707. This type of flying snake was rare. Eating the gallbladder was much faster than cultivating the body. After a while, he regained control of his body. The pain was gone and a powerful feeling filled his heart. He felt like he was taller than the clouds and bigger than the mountains. He could carry the mountains and cross the sea easily. He could punch a hole in the sky with just a lift of his hand. He felt like he was as light as a feather. The omniscient mirror told him that it was an illusion. His body was still the same. In fact, it was even heavier. His bones were denser, which would increase his weight. The two spirit cranes stood 2 meters in front of him. They were almost sticking to him as they looked at him. Their bright eyes flashed with curiosity. Chu Li's appearance just now made them curious. They did not feel anything after eating the gallbladder. It was strange that Chu Li had such a strange reaction. Chu Li went forward and touched their necks. He smiled. This was a great help to him. He looked down at the legs of the 2 cranes. There were faint teeth marks, but it did not look like they were poisoned. He bent down and picked up the 4 flying snakes. They were cold and slippery to the touch. They were unusually heavy, as if they were made of iron. He weighed them and signaled to the 2 spirit cranes. The 2 spirit cranes nodded in understanding. Chu Li suddenly disappeared and reappeared in Qing Yun Town. Xiao Shi was reading a book at the stone table. She quickly took the book and fanned it in front of her nose. She looked at him in disgust. He was sweaty and smelly, as if he had crawled out of a sewer. Chu Li smiled. I want to take a bath and stew this for snake stew. It's so fishy. Why do you want to eat this? Xiao Shi said. It's that spirit snake again. Can it be used as inner armor? Chu Li nodded. It should be better than the previous one. These 4 flying snakes were more difficult to deal with than the previous ones. They must have more spiritual energy. All right, try it. Xiao Shi shook her head. We have to use your sword. Chu Li passed the modesty sword to Yang Su. Menglan had already gone to prepare hot water. The 2 courtyards were simple, but they had everything they needed. They kept the pot boiling and ready to use at any time. After Chu Li finished his bath, he felt refreshed. A strange fragrance was already lingering in the courtyard. His mouth was filled with saliva. Xiao Shi stood in the courtyard and looked at the modesty sword. She was curious about its grayish yet sharp appearance. The patterns on the blade were also very interesting. Chu Li's heart trembled. He did not dare to suddenly make a sound to disturb her, for fear that she would accidentally cut herself. The sharpness of the modesty sword was incomparable to ordinary treasured swords. It could cut through iron like mud and cut flesh like tofu. I didn't expect it to smell so good. Chu Li slowly walked to the stone table and sat down. His footsteps caught her attention, and only then did he speak. The snake this time is different. Xiao Shi passed the modesty sword to him. It looks ugly, but it's quite fragrant when stewed. There's no fishy smell. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. The cloud-slashing power circulated throughout his body. He could not wait to test out how much stronger his body had become. Do you know what kind of snake this is? Xiao Shi asked. Chu Li smiled. Does the lady know? Xiao Shi said, when I saw how fragrant it was when I stewed it, I realized that it was a profound yang snake. Mysterious yang snake? Chu Li smiled. What's so special about it? The gallbladder of the black yang snake can strengthen the muscles and bones and help the kidneys. It is said to be a supreme tonic for men. Xiao Shi shook her head. She was not embarrassed at all. She calmly said, actually, it's just an increase in strength. The effect is extremely strong. Chu Li nodded. He had experienced it firsthand. His strength had indeed increased greatly. Xiao Shi said, the meat of the black yang snake can nourish one's body and increase one's lifespan. I don't know if that's true or not. Lifespan? How much can it increase? Chu Li was surprised. Xiao Shi said, it depends on how long the snake has lived. It's possible to add a few years. Seems like it's a rare item, especially for the elderly. Chu Li said, a short few years of lifespan was nothing to the young, but only the elderly would know how precious it was. A rare item is a rare item, it's rare. I don't think there are many of them in the world. This time, you've killed 4 of them, it's even fewer. Xiao Shi said. Thank God. If they escaped 100,000 hills, who would be able to control them? Chu Li said. If he did not have the help of the spirit crane, he would not be able to do anything to these 4 flying snakes. His sword could not hurt them, not even piercing their vital point. If they were to kill people, just the thought of it sent chills down his spine. A city of people would not be able to withstand their slaughter for long. Every time he thought of 100,000 hills, he felt his own insignificance and the weakness of humans. The snake meat was stewed until the evening. It was ready to be served when the sun was setting. Chu Li called Yang Baoshu over and brought 2 bowls back. The rest of them gobbled it up and finished it in no time. The aroma overpowered their fear of snakes, and they could not stop themselves from eating. It's so warm. Xiao Shi smiled. As she spoke, she used the spirit crane's breathing technique and quickly assimilated the surrounding heat into her body. The benefits she received were far greater than Yang Su and Menglan. She did not know martial arts nor did she have inner energy, but her body was slowly changing. Her bones were getting tougher and her strength had increased. Chu Li spoke with her for a while before returning to King An's imperial residence in a flash to wait for Fang Qingyang. Fang Qingyang was just as he expected. It was midnight. Fang Qingyang was like a blazing sun, shooting over like a stream of light. Chu Li stood in the middle of the courtyard in a white robe and looked at him calmly. Priest, aren't you afraid of being surrounded by masters from the Ji dynasty? Unless your country's emperor makes a move, what's there to be afraid of? Fang Qingyang said calmly. Can you catch up to me? That's not necessarily true. Chu Li shook his head. Is there nothing the Tempest Temple can do to you? Fang Qingyang said. I can escape even if I can't beat them. Besides, your country's emperor won't make a move if I kill you. You're not qualified yet. Fine, then let's put an end to this once and for all. Chu Li shook his head and stepped in front of him, extending his palm. Fang Qingyang scoffed and punched with his divine light fist. Bam! Their fists and palms collided and they both took a step back. Fang Qingyang frowned at him. Chu Li was like a different person after a day. His inner energy was pure and deep, even better than his own. Fang Qingyang's advantage disappeared in an instant. Fang Qingyang said calmly, What fortuitous encounter did you have? Chu Li smiled. I suddenly had an epiphany when I fought you and my cultivation level broke through. Thank you, thank you. Fang Qingyang looked at him deeply. Very well, I'll come again. As soon as he said that, he shot out like a stream of light and disappeared from his vision in the blink of an eye, leaving the range of the omniscient mirror. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Fang Qingyang had left just like that. He let out a long sigh of relief. He had passed this hurdle and the Holy Church of Light's revenge would not come for a while. Then, he frowned and sighed. What would they do? They would definitely think of ways to kill him, or he would not know how many disciples of the Holy Church of Light would die in his hands in the future. Moreover, he had killed many disciples of the Holy Church of Light, so he had to take revenge. Since he could not win using martial arts, he would have to use other methods, just like how he dealt with King Ping. He would have to start with the people around him. He frowned and pondered, but finally shook his head. It seemed like he had to take the initiative to attack. He could not wait for them to attack him and defeat them one by one. The White Shroud Xundao should go to the Li dynasty to take a look. The next morning, he was cultivating the nature restoration manifestation. He wanted to break Shao Qi's inner state as soon as possible, so he planned to go into isolated cultivation for a while to focus on his cultivation. Chief Zhu's voice came from outside. Qin Jin and the others were requesting an audience. Chapter 708. Chu Li sat in the main hall and listened to their report. He smiled. This is a good thing. It's a hot potato. Mei Courtyard can't be any better. Maybe this is Centurion Chen's kindness. Centurion Chen is that kind? Qin Jin shook his head. He believes in the serious spirit. He must snatch everything and never let go of any merit. He suffered a setback last time. This time, he saw the impact of investigating the High Duke's public house, so he snatched it. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Is that so? Qin Jin and the others nodded. Qin Jin said, Centurion, we can't give in this time. We must snatch it back. My identity is too sensitive. It's not appropriate for me to investigate this case. Chu Li shook his head. Then we have to do something else. Qin Jin said. The Ministry of War is going to conduct a purge. Chu Li frowned. Everyone was anxious about the minister-counselor incident. If we investigate again, we'll become the public enemy of all the courtiers. Qin Jin sighed. This is much more difficult than investigating the High Duke's public house. We'll offend too many people. Feng Jing scoffed. Chen Donghai is probably afraid of doing this, so he snatched the task of investigating the High Duke's public house. Chu Li touched his chin and said thoughtfully, The Ministry of War wants to investigate. This is not a small matter. This is too serious. I'm afraid the commander won't let the Centurion go, Qin Jin said. The Centurion had made a great contribution this time. The credit was shared with the entire May Air courtyard. Even if he did not do anything this year, he would still be very generous. After a few incidents, the Centurion stood out. His outstanding talent overshadowed the other Centurions in the Secret Guardians Hall. The rest of the Centurions were cautious and sought stability. They would rather not do anything than make a mistake. This time, the two matters were exceptionally troublesome. If those lethargic Centurions, who did not seek merit but only to avoid making mistakes, were to investigate them, who knew how long it would take? Moreover, these two matters required swift and decisive action, as well as outstanding talent. Chen Donghai had both talent and ambition. It would not be difficult for him to snatch one of the cases. The other would probably fall on the Centurion. Investigating the Ji public house was a High Duke's public house. The Great Ji dynasty had 12 High Duke's public houses, but investigating the Ministry of War was one. Chu Li pondered for a moment and said, Let's go and take a look. We can't keep dragging this out. He and the 4 others arrived at the Secret Guardians Hall. Before he could enter the residence, he bumped into Chen Donghai and 6 Secret Guardians coming out of the main entrance. When Chen Donghai saw Chu Li, a smile instantly appeared on his face. He stepped forward, cupped his fists, and smiled. Centurion Chu. Chu Li returned the gesture with a fist salute. Where are you going, Centurion Chen? Sigh. Chen Donghai shook his head and said, I was born to be a laborer. I need to make a trip to the Ji public house. Chu Li smiled. Could it be that they're investigating the Ji public house? Exactly. Chen Donghai said, I owe Centurion Chu a favor last time, so I'm just returning the favor. I know that you're from the High Duke's public house, so it would be very awkward for me to investigate the Ji public house. That's why I took the initiative to accept you. Chu Li saw that his thoughts were completely different. If he went to investigate the Ji public house, not only would he gain military merit, but he would also not offend too many courtiers. After all, these courtiers had a lot of henchmen. If he did not know where they would stumble, he would suffer in silence. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Thank you, Centurion Chen, but it won't be that easy to investigate the Ji public house. The High Duke's public house has always been at odds with the Secret Guardians Hall. Centurion Chen, you should be prepared to suffer. Hee hee. Chen Donghai laughed. No matter how arrogant the High Duke's public house is, they can't do anything to the Secret Guardians Hall. I believe that we can investigate thoroughly and see if there's anything wrong with the Ji public house. Chu Li cupped his fists and said, Then I wish Centurion Chen all the best. Haha, thank you for your blessings, Centurion Chu. Chen Donghai cupped his fists and laughed loudly before leading his men away. Chu Li shook his head and smiled as he watched him leave. This time, Chen Donghai had learned his lesson. He did not shed all pretenses of cordiality in front of everyone lest they say that he was ungrateful and played dirty tricks. Chu Li laughed to himself. Dirty tricks were easier for him to deal with. Others often thought that he did not know, but he did. Moreover, in order to not let him know, his hands and feet were tied, and he had to be scrupulous, giving him the upper hand. Qin Jin scoffed. This fellow is really shameless. Chu Li smiled. Elder Qin, just wait and watch the show. It's not that easy to infiltrate the Ji public house. The High Duke's public house disdained and hated the Secret Guardians Hall, so they would never allow the Secret Guardians Hall to investigate them. Instead, they would secretly attack them. Even if they did not kill them, they would not let them off easily. Beating them up would be considered a light punishment. Qin Jin smiled. Chen Donghai is quite capable. I guess the Ji public house won't be able to handle him. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. When he arrived at the main hall of the Secret Guardians Hall, only Su Huanda was there. Chu Li cupped his fist. Commander Su, Centurion Chen, is going to investigate the Ji public house. Will you leave the Ministry of War's matter to me? You should rest first, Su Huanda said. We'll leave this matter to the Ju-I courtyard. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. You don't need me? It's not a good thing for you to be in the limelight. You should lay low for a while. Su Huanda said, Go and cultivate in isolation. You almost lost your life this time. You haven't mastered your martial arts yet. Continue cultivating. Chu Li was surprised and touched at the same time. He could see that Su Huanda was sincere and was not trying to suppress him. Su Huanda said, Once a secret guardian, always a secret guardian. You still have a long way to go. With your skills, it would be a pity if you were harmed because your martial arts are not strong enough. Thank you for your concern, Commander Su. Chu Li cupped his fists. However, the Ministry of War's matter is very troublesome. If it drags on for too long, people will panic and complain. It's not a good thing for the Secret Guardians Hall. There's nothing we can do about it. Su Huanda sighed. The Ministry of War has become a sieve. If we don't properly investigate it, it'll be troublesome when we use troops in the future. Let me do it, Chu Li said. Su Huanda frowned. You still want to contribute? Chu Li said, Yes, since I want to cultivate in isolation, it's better to earn more contributions so that the people from May Air Courtyard won't suffer with me. They're living a good life. Su Huanda scoffed. The contributions from May E Courtyard were distributed to more than 100 people. May Air Courtyard only needed 14 people. It was a difference of 10 times. He faintly understood that Chu Li wanted to share their worries. Such subordinates were really likable. In fact, he and Fu Mengshan knew that it was appropriate to hand over the Ministry of War to Chu Li. Chu Li came from the Glories Will courtyard and was the best at eliminating traitors. In the past, when he eliminated the disciples of the Holy Church of Light, it was enough to prove his ability. No one in the Secret Guardians Hall could compare to him. However, for the future, they still did not want Chu Li to be in danger. Chu Li was now the trump card of the Secret Guardians Hall. His intelligence and talent were second to none. They were prepared to train him to be their successor. With Chu Li in charge of the Secret Guardians Hall, the Secret Guardians Hall would prosper and they could enjoy their old age. With this consideration, they were no longer in a hurry to exploit Chu Li's abilities. They wanted to use him slowly and focus on cultivating martial arts first. Investigating the Ministry of War was too eye-catching, so it was not appropriate for him to do it again. Chu Li said, After I'm done with this, I'm going to cultivate in isolation. He was indeed planning to cultivate hard so that Fang Qingyang would not catch up to him. Chapter 709. P.S. There are only 5 chapters today, I'm ashamed. You should go into isolated cultivation now, Su Huanda said. Chu Li frowned. I'm just afraid that the Secret Guardians Hall will be in big trouble. The secret guardian's hall could be considered as one of his backers as well as his most important source of information. Without the secret guardian's hall, his eyes and ears would not be as effective, and it would hinder his future plans. He had been arranging his eyes and ears for the future. Others would only watch one move, but he would watch 10. He would set up some idle chess pieces that would come into play at the crucial moment. Su Wanda said, "If it really doesn't work, then I'll let you take action." Chuli replied, "I don't need too long. I can finish my investigation in a day." Su Wanda was stunned. "One day?" Chuli nodded. "That's enough." Su Wanda frowned and said nothing. Chuli said, "Moreover, it won't alarm too many people. It won't cause a huge commotion." Su Wanda hesitated. He could not help but be tempted. It would be a great blessing to be able to finish the investigation in one day. It would reduce the dissatisfaction of the courtiers towards the secret guardian's hall to a minimum. They would be amazed and speechless, and the secret guardian's hall would be able to hold their heads high for once. Chuli said, "Send someone who's familiar with the Ministry of War to follow me. It'd be best if he's familiar with everyone in the Ministry of War and has some friendly relations with them." "One day?" "Yes." "All right." In the end, Su Wanda gritted his teeth and hesitated for a moment before he said, "Commander and I originally planned to let you hide your strength and bide your time for a while. It'll be fine once I'm done with this," Chuli said. Sigh. Su Wanda shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I'm still not strong enough." "All right, I'll leave it to you." Chuli fist saluted and smiled. "I'm only saying who's suspicious. As for how to investigate, it's better to leave it to the secret guardian's hall. Let the other houses do it." "Yes, that's for the best." Su Wanda nodded and said, "You won't be in the limelight too." Chuli nodded. Chuli followed a supervisor from the Ministry of War into the Ministry of War's government office. The Ministry of War and the secret guardian's hall were separated by 2 streets. They were not far from each other, but they had never interacted with each other. It was the same for all the government offices. They viewed the secret guardian's hall as a dreadful beast and were afraid to avoid them. They would never get involved with them, but at the same time they respected them. The secret guardian's hall found a chief from the Ministry of War. His surname was Ji, and his name was Ji Jiang. He was a chubby old man in his 50s who was always smiling. Ji Jiang looked very amiable. It was hard to believe that he had also fought his way out of the military. Although he did not have a high position as a manager, he had a lot of connections. As Ji Jiang brought Chuli to the Ministry of War's government office, she smiled and said, "Chief Chuli, the others might not be happy, but they're only targeting the secret guardian's hall, not you, Chief Chuli. Please don't mind them." Chuli clasped his hands behind his back and walked side by side with him. He smiled and said, "I can do it. It's normal for me to be cold and make sarcastic remarks. This makes me seem magnanimous, and I'm impressed." "Haha, that's good. That's good." Ji Jiang laughed. The 2 of them entered a gate and started from the first courtyard. Once they entered the courtyard, they first introduced Chuli to the people in the courtyard, and then introduced Chuli to them. All Chuli got in return were supercilious looks and cold faces. Ji Jiang turned to look at Chuli from time to time, afraid that he would turn hostile and leave. Chuli's expression did not change. It was as if he did not see these people's expressions and supercilious looks. He only nodded and greeted them calmly, and even smiled. He entered and exited courtyard after courtyard in a calm and unhurried manner. However, Ji Jiang became more and more guilty and worried. His calmness was really abnormal. It was normal for him to be furious. Young people were impetuous and easily lost their temper. Ji Jiang understood this very well, but Chuli was able to keep his composure. It was obvious how shrewd he was. He did not believe that someone could not take it to heart when faced with such cold faces and supercilious looks. Even if he took it to heart, he did not show it. It was a deep mark in his heart, and then he would find a chance to return it. When they arrived at the last courtyard, Ji Jiang smiled and said, "This is the most inconspicuous courtyard. It's filled with managers like me. I'm here too." Chu Li nodded and entered the small courtyard. There were more than 20 people in the small courtyard, and the atmosphere was filled with a busy atmosphere. When they saw Chu Li and Ji Jiang, they only glanced at them curiously and continued with their work. Ji Jiang introduced Chu Li one by one, and then brought him out of the small courtyard. The two of them spent 2 hours going around the Ministry of War's government office. Chu Li Fist saluted Ji Jiang and bid farewell, then returned to the Secret Guardians Hall. When he arrived at Mei Air Courtyard, everyone was training in the martial arts field. When they saw him return, Yang Zongwen and Qin Jin came over, and the rest continued to train. "Centurion, are you done investigating?" Yang Zongwen asked. Chu Li nodded. "Prepare a brush and ink." Yang Zongwen ground the inkstone and set up the brush and paper while Qin Jin watched from the side. Chu Li picked up the brush and wrote down 3 names, then marked them as Li Dynasty, Zheng Dynasty, and Fu Dynasty. He put down the brush and blew on the paper to dry the ink, then passed it to Yang Zongwen. "Send this to Commander Su." Yang Zongwen looked at him in surprise. "Centurion, they're all traitors?" Chu Li nodded. Yang Zongwen was surprised. "Ji Jiang too?" Chu Li nodded. Yang Zongwen said in disbelief. He was promoted from the Shijiang military merit, and it's been years since he was promoted. "How can he be a traitor?" Chu Li smiled. "Whether he is or not, we'll know after investigating carefully." "Yes." Yang Zongwen sighed helplessly. "I really didn't expect it, it's impossible." Chu Li said, "That's smart. You don't have to worry about the rest, just leave it to Commander Su and let someone else investigate." Sigh. Yang Zongwen sighed and stood up to leave. He came to the main hall of the Secret Guardians Hall, and when he saw Su Huanda, he presented a piece of paper with both hands. "Commander Su, the Centurion ordered me to present this." Su Huanda sat in the armchair and took the paper. After glancing at it, his expression changed slightly, and he straightened up. Yang Zongwen knew that he must be shocked, and so was he. Su Huanda frowned. "This Ji Jiang," Yang Zongwen said, "the Centurion was very sure. He said that as long as we investigate carefully, we'll be able to find out." "Then we must investigate," Su Huanda said in a low voice. "If he's really a spy from the Fu dynasty, then we'll be in trouble." Ji Jiang was a person in charge of the Ministry of War. He was tactful and humble, and had a good relationship with many people. He was one of the informants of the Secret Guardians Hall, and he usually provided information, and he also received information from the Secret Guardians Hall. If he was really from the Fu dynasty, then it would be a great irony, and the Secret Guardians Hall would lose all face. Su Huanda said, "All right, he doesn't have to worry about the rest, just leave it to the public house, and let him cultivate in isolation." "Yes." Yang Zongwen Fist saluted and left. Su Huanda stared at the paper and shook his head. The dignified government office of the Ministry of War actually had 3 spies, and their positions were not low either. If they did not find out who they were, in another 10 or 20 years, these people might even sit in high positions, and become another minister counselor. This time, no matter what, they had to get to the bottom of this, even if it caused a storm in the city. This matter was too important. Back then, these people had gone through 3 layers of checks, and there was no problem with their identities, but the result was like this. Chapter 710. P.S. I couldn't finish 6 chapters yesterday, and was upset the whole night. I've decided to add more chapters today. I'm going all out. Everyone, please cheer me on, I'm grateful. Chu Li held the invitation and raised his eyebrows. Chief Zhu said, "This invitation was sent here 2 hours ago. Half an hour ago, the lady who sent the invitation came again and asked you to head over earlier." "Hee hee, It seems like Miss Yuqing is very fond of you and can't wait to meet you. One day apart feels like 3 years. He smiled as if he was the one who was invited. Chu Li glared at him. Chief Zhu quickly shut his mouth, but could not help but smile. All right, look for me immediately when the Verdant Cloud brothel sends an invitation next time. Chu Li scoffed. Chief Zhu quickly nodded. Yes, yes, a date with a beauty can't be delayed. Head Chief, should we send someone to follow her? Chu Li waved his hand. Don't worry about it, get lost. Chief Zhu laughed. Yes, yes, I'll get lost. But Head Chief, you should head over as soon as possible. It's a sin to keep the beauty waiting. Get lost. Chu Li kicked him. Chief Zhu beamed with joy as he left. Chu Li shook his head. This elder Zhu was strange. The more casual he was with him, the more he felt comfortable and more loyal. He looked at the invitation thoughtfully. Since senior sister Mo Qingyu invited him over, and in such a hurry, there must be something urgent. As he was thinking, the omniscient mirror saw Mo Qingyu's maid, Xiao Jie, arrive at the imperial residence. Chief Zhu hurriedly greeted her and fist saluted. Miss Xiao Jie, what a coincidence, the head chief has just entered. Really? Xiao Jie's originally anxious and pretty face suddenly turned into surprise. She hurriedly said, I want to see the chief. Chief Zhu quickly said, Miss Xiao Jie, please follow me. He brought Xiao Jie to the main hall. Chu Li did not wait for him to speak and said, Xiao Jie, come in. Elder Zhu, get lost. Yes. Chief Zhu smiled at Xiao Jie. The head chief is inside. Miss Xiao Jie, please come in. Xiao Jie curtsied to thank him. Chief Zhu hurriedly waved his hand. He did not dare to be careless. Xiao Jie might follow Miss Yuqing into the imperial residence in the future, and then she would become a member of the inner courtyard. If he were to say something wrong, he would suffer. It was better to curry favor with her now than to suffer in the future. He believed in sowing good karma and doing good to others. Xiao Jie entered the hall and curtsied. Head Chief. Chu Li asked, Miss Yuqing, what's the matter? Xiao Jie looked around and said in a low voice, Head Chief, you should go quickly. Miss is in a hurry. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and saw Mo Qingyu's actions in her mind. He nodded and said, You can go back by yourself. I'll make a move first. Yes, Xiao Jie hurriedly replied. Chu Li glided out of the main hall and suddenly disappeared. He reappeared in an alley beside the Verdant Cloud brothel and walked towards the Verdant Cloud brothel. The two guards cupped their fists and said, Head Chief, please come in. Are you going to the Yuqing courtyard? Chu Li nodded. I will lead the way for the head chief, a young guard said with a smile. Chu Li smiled. Thank you. The two soon arrived at the Yuqing courtyard. Chu Li cupped his fists and bowed to the young guard. The young guard returned a fist salute and quietly left. Chu Li pushed open the door of the courtyard. Mo Qingyu was standing in the middle of the courtyard and pacing back and forth. She was wearing a lotus-colored pleated skirt and a green blouse. She looked fresh and pleasant. Her steps were light and elegant, pleasing to the eye. Her pure and gentle face was full of anxiety. When she heard the door open, she hurriedly asked, Did you see him? Chu Li shook his head and stepped into the courtyard. He closed the door. Senior sister, are you like ordinary people when you're hiding your power? Seeing that it was Chu Li, Mo Qingyu let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly pulled his arm. Come in quickly. Chu Li had already seen the situation in the house. He followed her into the house and directly entered the bedroom. In the warm and fragrant bedroom, a pale and unconscious Shen Su was lying on the bed. Chu Li frowned. Have you taken the adversity surpassing pill? I have, but it's useless. Mo Qingyu shook her head. Master's Junior's injury is very strange. No medicine works, so I can only ask for you, junior brother. Chu Li went forward to check his pulse. His face darkened and he scoffed. Shura Palm. Shura Palm. Mo Qingyu frowned. Could it be Azura? Chu Li nodded and glanced at her. She was indeed a disciple of a famous faction. Her knowledge was extraordinary. Ordinary people did not know about the existence of Azura. How did Masters Jr. provoke Azura? Emo Qingyu shook her head. Masters Jr. fainted as soon as he came in. He tried his best to hold on. Chu Li nodded. Emo Qingyu hurriedly asked, Junior brother, is there a way to save him? Chu Li replied, yes, there's no problem. Emo Qingyu let out a long sigh of relief and patted her chest. She put her palms together and bowed to the sky. Thank God. Chu Li did not need to use the Azura power technique. He activated the life and death scripture and turned death into life. He directly dissolved the Azura palm energy and turned it into a rich vitality that nourished Shin Su's broken body. This was the horror of the Shura palm. It was like the breath of death that devoured all vitality. Even a spirit pill like the adversity-surpassing pill could not withstand its corrosion and lost its effectiveness. Therefore, the Shura palm needed a special technique to restrain it, or death would be the only outcome. Chu Li moved some spiritual energy from heaven and earth and circulated it in Shin Su's body according to the minute pulse cleansing technique. After a quarter of an hour, he retracted his palm. He's fine now. Emo Qingyu had already brewed some tea. She served it to him. Thank goodness you're here, junior brother. Otherwise, I would really be helpless. Chu Li frowned and shook his head. Why did another Azura appear? Moreover, one that could injure Master Shin Su was definitely not an ordinary Azura. Was the Tempest Temple not suppressing it? Emo Qingyu said, Junior brother, you've been in the limelight recently. You're even more famous now. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. It's just an empty reputation. Everyone is talking about you killing the minister-counselor of the Ministry of War. Emo Qingyu frowned. You have to be careful. The Holy Church of Light will come for revenge. Chu Li nodded. Shin Su suddenly groaned and slowly opened his eyes. Emo Qingyu hurried forward. Masters Jr.? A smile appeared on Shin Su's face as he turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li fist saluted. Master. Shin Su sighed. I finally get to see you. Chu Li asked, was it done by the Azuras? Shin Su nodded. Chu Li frowned. The Tempest Temple is suppressing the Azuras. I didn't expect there to be fish that slipped through the net. These two Azuras have extremely high cultivation levels. They're one level higher than me. Shin Su shook his head. I was lucky to be able to escape with my life. Chu Li nodded. He could see that Shin Su's cultivation level was slightly lower than his. It was indeed dangerous for him to encounter a powerful Azura. Shin Su struggled to take out a snow-white jade tag. It was the size of a palm and was trapezoidal in shape. Both sides of the tag were carved with a mountain peak. It was so vast that it felt like it was slowly collapsing. Shin Su could not help but want to escape. This is the jade tag of an official disciple. Shin Su passed it to Chu Li. It's also the door to the dojo. Chu Li was surprised. Dojo? Chapter 711. Chu Li smiled. Does this mean that I can enter the dojo too? You are the direct disciple of the Myriad Phenomenon Peak. Why can't you enter? Shin Su said indifferently, as long as your nature-returning manifestation cultivation is high enough, you can enter the dojo and become an illustrious sect disciple, undying and indestructible. Chu Li looked at Emo Qingyu. Emo Qingyu took out a jade pendant from her bosom and waved it around. I have this too. This is the identity jade pendant of an official disciple of the Amethyst Mountain. Drip your blood on it and through a unique secret technique, it will be connected to your flesh, blood, and mind. As long as your cultivation level is high enough, you can use it to enter the dojo of the Amethyst Mountain and become a disciple of the Obvious Clan. Even if you die, you will not perish. Chu Li nodded slowly and gave a fist salute. Thank you, Master. Shin Su shook his head. This is what you deserve. There's no need to thank me. I should be the one thanking you. Although he was unconscious, his spirit had always been able to sense the outside world. He knew that Emo Qingyu was helpless against his injuries, and that it was Chu Li who had saved him. This disciple of his possessed strange skills, and was not afraid of the Azura power technique's inner energy. Chu Li said, "Master, you should recuperate well. Master's junior uncle, stay here for a few more days to fully recover from your injuries." Emo Qingyu smiled and said, "Thanks to junior brother, I'm now a free man. I can entertain guests as I please, and no one will force me to do so." Shin Su looked at Chu Li. Emo Qingyu said, "Junior brother has quite a good relationship with the leader of the Verdant Cloud brothel." Chu Li nodded and said, "I've done you a small favor. Master, you don't have to leave in a hurry this time." Shin Su shook his head and said, "I have to return to the mountain as soon as possible. Another shitty has fallen. I have already found out the reason, and I have to quickly think of a countermeasure. Have the obvious sect disciples go out and be careful of the Azura." He turned his head and said, "Chu Li, I'll teach you the secret skill now." "Yes." Chu Li nodded. Shin Su waved his hand. Emo Qingyu brought over a short table and placed it horizontally on the couch. Brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were placed on the table. Shin Su picked up the brush, and with a flourish, he quickly filled up a piece of paper. He put down the brush, blew on it, and passed it to Chu Li. Chu Li took it and glanced at it thoughtfully. Shin Su said, "Do you remember it?" "Yes," Chu Li replied. Shin Su said, "Destroy it." Chu Li clasped his palms together, and it immediately turned into powder that fell onto a small plate on the low table. Shin Su said, "There's nothing profound about this heart technique, but if you don't know the method, you won't be able to think of it no matter what." Chu Li smiled. "I really wonder which founder created it." Shin Su shook his head and said, "These are secret techniques passed down from the realm beyond heaven, created by the Celestials. It's very difficult for us mortals to have such profound wisdom." Chu Li had a sudden realization. He immediately understood that many of the absolute skills and secret techniques that he had learned were not created by the people of the realm beyond skies. Right now, your manifestation of nature restoration is still not profound enough. You need to harden your heart and forge ahead bravely. Train hard. Shin Su looked at Chu Li and said gently, "Based on your qualifications, it won't be difficult for you to enter the dojo. Put everything else aside for now and think about it after you enter the dojo." Chu Li said, "I feel like I've cultivated the nature restoration manifestation to its peak. I've made very little progress. Manifestation of nature restoration can't be practiced while sitting down. You have to train while moving, and it's best to fight with others. Moreover, in a life and death battle, you can experience the extreme changes in the other person's state of mind. Manifestation of nature restoration will advance the fastest," Shin Su said. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. "So I have to kill people?" Shin Su hesitated for a moment and slowly nodded. "That's right." Chu Li said, "I understand. Thank you, Master." "I'm your master, no need to be so polite. Your qualifications far surpass mine. Manifestation of nature restoration will be carried forward by you. However, nature restoration manifestation is an unusual technique. You still have to cultivate the martial arts of Heaven's Thunder Peak. Amethyst Mountain isn't the martial arts of Phantom Een Peak at all?" Chu Li asked. Shin Su said, "Phantom Een Peak's martial arts are the easiest to learn. It's also very powerful, so it's most suitable for others. However, your qualifications are strong, so it'll be a waste for you to cultivate this. After thinking about it, I think it's better to cultivate the martial arts of Heaven's Thunder Peak." "Masters Junior, the martial arts of Heaven's Thunder Peak are too difficult," Emo Qingyu said. "Moreover, it's too dangerous." Chu Li looked at Emo Qingyu. Emo Qingyu said, "The astronomical phenomenon of Heaven's Thunder Peak is strange. There's lightning falling all year round. Absorbing the energy of thunder into one's body to cultivate heaven's thunder technique is powerful, but it's too dangerous. One will be turned into ashes at any moment. Heaven's thunder technique is suitable for Chu Li. Shen Su shook his head. His body is much stronger than ordinary people. Chu Li smiled. Now that Master has mentioned it, I really want to give it a try. Shen Su said. The disciples of the Phantom Een Peak also cultivate the Heaven's Thunder Palm, but this Heaven's Thunder is not the real Heaven's Thunder. It is very different from the real Heaven's Thunder Palm. Once one cultivates the Heaven's Thunder Palm, it will be very difficult to meet an opponent. Mo Qingyu shook her head. It's powerful, but it's too dangerous. It's best not to practice it. Shen Su said. If you want to become an enlightened master, the Heaven's Thunder Palm is the shortcut. Palms were almost invincible, and only the Heavenly Thunder Palm could fight. If he didn't learn the Heavenly Thunder Palm, how could he face a grand Nirvana realm cultivator? I can only retreat in defeat. Mo Qingyu shook her head and said, I advise junior brother not to practice it. Shen Su said, Let's finish practicing the manifestation of nature restoration first. We'll talk about it after we enter the dojo. Chu Li Fist saluted and nodded. He could feel that both Mo Qingyu and Shen Su had good intentions, but he still had to figure out his choice carefully before deciding. He could not enter Amethyst Mountain now, so he was still far from Heaven's Thunder Palm. Chu Li stayed in Verdant Cloud Brothel for the next few days, asking for advice on the obstacles in his martial arts. Shen Su's cultivation level was not as high as his, but his knowledge and experience of martial arts were far better than Chu Li's. Most of his doubts were answered by Shen Su with just a few words, allowing his martial arts to advance to another level. When the lanterns were lit, Chu Li, Shen Su, and Mo Qingyu sat at the stone table in the courtyard, drinking and chatting. If you enter the dojo, these will be a piece of cake. You'll obtain knowledge beyond your imagination, as long as you have the ability to learn. Shen Su shook his head. Chu Li asked, Are there books in the dojo? The dojo is a mysterious place. It's similar to the real world, but even more mysterious. Shen Su sighed. Almost all the ancestors are there, and they still teach. Mo Qingyu sighed. Unfortunately, my cultivation level is not high enough, so I've never been able to enter. It's not easy to enter the dojo. Shen Su sighed. Among the disciples of the first generation, it's good enough if 1 out of 10 can enter. Mo Qingyu said, Just thinking about meeting so many grandmasters and listening to their teachings with my own ears is enough to make one's heart race. Once you enter the dojo, you'll be able to advance by leaps and bounds, leaving the disciples of the same generation far behind. Shen Su said, It's not without reason that the disciples of the obvious sect are respected far more than the disciples of the hidden sect. Chu Li slowly nodded. What we lack is not mystical or ultimate arts, but cultivators. He finally understood the gap between him and Fa Yuan. If he did not enter the 4 major sects, he would soon be surpassed by Fa Yuan. It was like the difference between a third-rate university and the number 1 university in his past life. That's right. The 4 major sects are all like this. There's no need to worry about not having the ultimate arts to cultivate, only the lack of aptitude. No matter how much you know, it's useless if your progress in cultivation is slow. Chu Li said, I'll enter as soon as possible. It'd be best if you could go to the military to gain experience. Shen Su said, but the military is also dangerous. The sects don't advocate for disciples to enter. Chapter 7:12. Mo Qingyu was afraid that Chu Li did not know how dangerous it was and would really go to the army to train, so she quickly said, Junior brother, military formations have a suppressive effect on martial arts, so it's not safe for grandmasters to be in the army. They might die. Before you enter the dojo, you must not train in the army. Chu Li smiled. I know. Emo Qingyu looked at Shen Su with dissatisfaction. Masters Junior, you always come up with unreliable ideas. Heaven's Thunder Peak, in the army, which one doesn't die easily? Shen Su said, to become an enlightened master, you have to fight with your life on the line. You can't be afraid of battle, you have to win against death to become an enlightened master. Otherwise, no matter how powerful you are, you'll only be a grandmaster. Emo Qingyu said, one step at a time, what's the rush? Shen Su shook his head and sighed. If you want to surpass the Tempest Temple, you have to be ahead of them. Don't worry, master, I'll work hard. Chu Li said, the best place to fight is not in the army, but with Azura. These people's murderous intent is 100 times stronger than ordinary people, it's more exciting. It's too dangerous. Shen Su sighed. He had personally experienced the power of Azura. With Chu Li's cultivation level, fighting with them was almost certain death. It was much more dangerous than Heaven's Thunder Peak and the army. Chu Li smiled. He understood his own master well. He was not very worldly and only cared about methods when doing things, not emotions. This might be a common problem after cultivating the nature restoration manifestation, pure rationality, and abandoning emotion. He realized that any mystical skill would affect one's personality after cultivating it. Some had little effect, some had great effect, just like his occupational disease in his past life, it was hard to avoid. Shen Su left 5 days later. The Secret Guardians Hall had been investigating the 3 people from the Ministry of War. The Secret Guardians Hall showed their prowess, and they found a lot of evidence. The Secret Guardians Hall was an expert in this area. They had eyes everywhere, and as long as they really tried their best to investigate, nothing could be hidden. There was indeed something wrong with the 3 people. As Chu Li said, they were all spies from 3 different countries. When he returned to the Secret Guardians Hall, the protectors looked at him with admiration and admiration. Chu Li only had to go around the Ministry of War, and he was able to identify the 3 spies. His accuracy was unmistakable, it was truly miraculous. He now had a nickname in the Secret Guardians Hall, the God's Eye. There were no traitors that could escape his eyes, and he could see them clearly with just one look. When Chu Li arrived at the main hall, other than Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda, there was also a man with a swollen face and a bloody nose. After Chu Li came in, he sat still, feeling that Chu Li would not recognize him. Chu Fist saluted with a smile and asked with concern, Centurion Chun, what's wrong? Chun Donghai cursed silently. As expected of the God's Eye, he could not hide anything from him. He stood up helplessly and cupped his fist. He couldn't help but grimace. The action of cupping his fists had affected his wounds, and the pain was unbearable. I'm sorry to have been ambushed by a few rascals. Chun, Centurion, who must be the top. Master must, Chu must be a master. I didn't recognize you because you covered your face. Chun Donghai scoffed. You're hiding your face, you don't have to care about them. Chu Li smiled. Centurion Chun, do you plan to take revenge? Humph. Chun Donghai snorted and gritted his teeth. Revenge my *SS. There was no way to take revenge. He could only swallow his anger. He was so vexed. Chu Li turned to look at Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda. How did Centurion Chun get hurt? Your face is beaten up like this. Won't the swelling go down quickly with medicine? This injury is strange. The fist force is strange, and the medicine is not as effective. Su Huanda held back his laughter. The other party did it on purpose. We've lost all our face because of Centurion Chun. Where's our usual cleverness? We should hide for a while. The right thing to do was to hide and wait for the injury to heal before returning to the house. The Secret Guardians Hall would not lose so much face then. Now, not only would everyone in the Secret Guardians Hall know that Chun Donghai had been beaten up, but the people outside had also seen it. The news would definitely spread like wildfire, and almost everyone in Fairy's capital would applaud and cheer. The Secret Guardians Hall's prestige would take a huge hit. Chen Donghai scoffed. Commander Su, I know I should hide, but these people are too arrogant. If I hide, I'll continue to be beaten. I can only escape back to Fairy's capital. Instead of hiding in Fairy's capital, it's better to go back to the house. Chu Li looked at him and shook his head. He saw through Chen Donghai's little plan. He was forcing the Secret Guardians Hall to avenge him and regain face. Chen Donghai was going all out. He knew that he could not take revenge on his own, so he decided to die together with them. He would use his own face to exchange for the other party's destruction. These people are too much. Su Huanda sighed and turned to look at Fu Mengshan. Fu Mengshan said, "All right, Elder Chen, you go back first. I'll discuss this with Commander Su. Your task now is to recuperate. You don't have to worry about anything else." "Commander, about the Ji public house case." Chen Donghai grimaced. He endured the pain and frowned. "Should I hand it over? What do you think?" Fu Mengshan scoffed. "You haven't even reached the Ji public house yet. Can you blame it on them? How can you continue investigating in this state?" "If you want to continue investigating, I agree." Commander Su nodded. "Continue investigating if you want to. They must be the ones who did it," Chen Donghai said in a low voice. "Let's not talk about whether there's anything wrong with them. The Secret Guardians Hall can't show weakness just because they're so unscrupulous. Otherwise, the 12 High Dukes' public houses won't respect us anymore. Then will you continue investigating them?" Commander Su asked. Chen Donghai looked at Chu Li. "I originally wanted to share Centurion Chu's burden. His identity is sensitive, so it's not appropriate for him to investigate the High Duke's public houses. But now that I'm in this state, I can't continue investigating even if I want to." Chu Li smiled. "Thank you, Centurion Chen." Chen Donghai looked at Fu Mengshan. "Commander, this case will eventually be handed over to Centurion Chu. No one else has the ability to do so. It's just like purging the Ministry of War. It's as difficult as ascending to heaven for us, but it's as easy as lifting a finger for Centurion Chu." Fu Mengshan narrowed his eyes. He could hear the sinister intentions in Chen Donghai's words. He scoffed. "Aren't you useless now that you put it that way?" Chen Donghai shook his head and sighed. "Although we're not as good as Centurion Chu, we're still useful in dealing with small matters. Otherwise, Centurion Chu won't have enough energy." It's good that you understand," Fu Mengshan said impatiently. "Cut the nonsense. This case will still be handed over to you. Your Mei courtyard has a lot of elite soldiers. Don't be reluctant. Young Chu has other matters to attend to." Chen Donghai's eyes flickered. He smiled. "All right, we'll have our revenge." "It's good that you understand," Fu Mengshan scoffed. "If you embarrass yourself like this again, I think you should go to the Imperial Mausoleum." "Yes," Chen Donghai said in a low voice. Chapter 713. Chu Li sighed and said gently, "Commander, let me do it." "Young Chu," Fu Mengshan said impatiently, "don't tell me you think the Secret Guardians Hall is full of useless people and you're the only capable one?" Chu Li smiled. "I'll go into isolated cultivation in a few days. I might as well make another contribution so that Mei Air Courtyard can live more comfortably." He turned his head and smiled. "Centurion Chen, I'll have to steal your credit again. I'm really sorry." Chen Donghai was overjoyed, but his face showed reluctance. "Centurion Chu, your identity is sensitive. It's better if you don't get involved in this case. If you don't contribute, the public won't be satisfied with the result." He initially thought it was a big pie but realized it was not a pie at all. It was a big fire pit that anyone who jumped in would die. The few of them could escape unscathed because of the Ji public house's warning. Even if they did not dare to kill, they would still dare to cripple a few secret guardians. He originally thought the G public house was only average, but he realized he was wrong. The grandmasters he brought were not enough. The G public house was far stronger than he imagined and rumored to be. He had to be careful when encountering a High Duke's public house that hid their strength and bided their time. If they really investigated something extraordinary, they would definitely die. That was why he tried everything to get Chu Li to accept this mission. The commander was cunning and seemed to have seen through his intentions. He did not agree. Just as he was feeling disappointed, Chu Li jumped into the fire pit himself. Haha, Chen Donghai laughed in his heart. There was no one more stupid than him in the world. It seemed like his intelligence was just petty trick. This kind of intelligence was destined to not go far and die young. Cutting off one's path to wealth was like killing one's parent. Chu Li had no grudge against him, but if he cut off his path to merit, he would be his mortal enemy. He would kick him away if he had the chance. Fu Mengshan frowned. Elder Chen is right. Young Chu, if you investigate something wrong, how are you going to explain it to the public house? If there's no problem, everyone will be skeptical. It's better not to do it. Su Huanda said, you've already accepted one of these two major missions. It's a little too much to accept another. What will your colleagues think if you don't give any benefits to others? I see. Chu Li nodded slowly and sighed. That's true. I can only trouble Centurion Chen. Chen Donghai smiled and nodded. I'm already very grateful for Centurion Chu's thought. If it were not for the fact that Chu Li had helped him out of his predicament and he was indebted to him, so he could not turn against him or glare angrily at him to prevent himself from being labeled as an ungrateful person, he would have cursed him out loud. Damn it. Elder Chen, you should go first. Recuperate well, then quickly investigate the G public house. Fu Mengshan waved his hand. Chen Donghai got up and fist saluted. I'll take my leave. He slowly walked out of the hall, staggering with each step. It seemed that he was heavily injured. Su Huanda scoffed and said, this fellow is playing tricks and putting on an act. They looked at Chen Donghai and then at Chu Li. As commanders, it was only natural for them to protect such outstanding talents who were sincere in their work. Chen Li was. Although Chen was Chen think Chen and Chen Li was Chen Hua. He Chen. They did not know that Chu Li saw through their thoughts and catered to them. That was why he always put the Secret Guardians Hall's overall situation first. Even if he could not take charge of the Secret Guardians Hall in the future, becoming a deputy like Commander Su was enough for him. Chu Li muttered, Commander Su, it's better if I go and investigate. Centurion Chen and the others are out in the open, while I'm in the dark. The G public house's actions seem magnanimous and fearless. The G public house is not to be trifled with. Fu Mengshan shook his head and sighed. Especially High Duke Ji. He has a profound cultivation level and is very protective of his people. If you really want to investigate, he won't care about your seniority and will attack. High Duke Ji. Chu Li smiled. I'd like to learn a thing or two from him. That's true. Alright, you can investigate in secret. Fu Mengshan thought about it and felt that with Chu Li's cultivation level, he would not be afraid of High Duke Ji. He nodded and said, get in and get out quickly. The Ministry of War did a clean job this time. It was very beautiful and completely shocked the chancellors of the Imperial Court. Now, who would dare say that the Secret Guardians Hall only does bad things? Through the Ministry of War's purge, the status of the Secret Guardians Hall had risen greatly. The chancellors of the Imperial Court also realized that the Secret Guardians Hall was not only the Emperor's lackey, but also had abilities that were far beyond the reach of ordinary people. This was a powerful deterrent to all the people who were ready to make trouble, and they were praised by the Emperor. Chu Li nodded. Then I'll set off now. Fu Mengshan pondered and said, Young Chu, it's best that you don't expose your identity. Cover your face and investigate in secret to avoid embarrassment. Thank you, Commander. I understand. Chu Li nodded. I'll disguise myself as an ordinary secret guardian and use an alias. Fu Mengshan took out a box from his inner pocket and handed it to Chu Li. Take this. Chu Li reached out to take it and opened it to take a look. It was a mask as thin as a feather. It was no different from human skin and it gave people goosebumps. Fu Mengshan said, "This is a mask made from the skin of a fog beast. It can pass off as the real thing." Fog beast. Chu Li pondered and pondered in his mind. He raised his eyebrows. The kind of spirit beast that can change the size and color of its body? Yes. Fu Mengshan nodded and smiled. This is something that has been extinct for a long time. There's only one of it in the secret vault of the Imperial House. I asked the Emperor for it and gave it to you. Fog beast! Chu Li exclaimed. The fog beast was a spirit beast that belonged to the 100,000 Hills. Could not be found in the outside world now, so it was extinct. This is something from 10,000 years ago, Fu Mengshan said. Use it carefully. Don't use it if you can, lest it gets damaged. Yes. Chu Li nodded. Fu Mengshan said, I've also prepared an identity for you, Chu Lingfeng. Su Huanda took a file from the side and handed it to him. Chu Li reached out and took it. He opened it and glanced at it. It was a resume. It recorded where he had been since he was young, who his relatives were, where he learned his skills, and when he left the mountain. Chu Lingfeng's background is clean and he has nothing to worry about. After wearing the mask of the fog beast, no one can tell whether it's real or fake. Fu Mengshan said, You are Chu Lingfeng. You can roam the martial arts world as a martial arts master. You can have more freedom. Chu Li nodded slowly. Yes. Thank you very much, Commander Su. This is also the way we thought of to protect you. We don't want you to be in the limelight and get yourself killed. Fu Mengshan said, If you are in the limelight, not only the Tempest Temple, even the Holy Church of Light will not let you go. Chu Li nodded. Now that you have this identity, Fu Mengshan said, let your original identity lie low for a few years. You can advance and retreat at the same time. The Secret Guardians Hall will not arrange any more missions for you. Chu Li gave a fist salute. He originally had the same idea. He did not expect the two commanders to think the same way as him. Chapter 7:14. Chu Li had been to the Ji public house's Ji River Valley, so he could reach there in a flash. He did not go there directly. He wanted to let the Ji public house relax and lower their guard. Then, he would sneak in and hit the target in one strike. Qingyun Town's night was more bustling than day, full of fireworks. Chu Li brought Xiao Shi along as they strolled on the street. Xiao Shi was dressed in a bluish-white gown. A white veil covered her beautiful face, revealing only a pair of deep and bright eyes, as well as her smooth and fair forehead. She was already exuding a fatal attraction, attracting the gazes of the people around her. Chu Li's white robe fluttered in the wind, a long sword hung on his waist. His body emitted a majestic aura. Once they got close, they could feel the solemnity and dignity, not daring to have any thoughts of offending him. Xiao Shi stopped from time to time and stood in front of the shop to pick some trinkets. These trinkets were like heaven and earth compared to her jewelry. Whether it was the workmanship or the materials used, they were worlds apart. Yet, she never got tired of it. She found it novel and interesting. After she bought it, she would take it out from time to time to admire it. Since we're going to the Ji public house, let's leave tomorrow morning, Chu Li said. You can follow me. When we reach the Ji public house, I'll send you back when I need to do something. How about that? Sure. Xiao Shi replied casually. She fiddled with a golden ornament and stuck it on top of her head for him to take a look. The owner of the shop was stunned. Even though he couldn't see her face clearly, Her elegant posture and every move she made were beautiful and moving, captivating his mind. Chu Li shook his head, gesturing. Xiao Shi put down the golden ornament and picked up a jade hairpin. She placed it on her ink-like hair. Chu Li still shook his head. The shop owner glared at him angrily. Seeing that Xiao Shi was about to leave, he quickly called out, "Don't rush, miss. I still have a treasure here." He quickly took out a beautiful red sandalwood box. It was glossy and glossy. He handed it to Xiao Shi. "Try this, miss." Xiao Shi took the box and opened it. She took out a wooden hairpin. It shone with a warm luster. It looked like ivory from her past life, but also like white jade. It was obviously not an ordinary item. A precious hairpin belongs to a beauty. The shop owner was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He had a square face and looked serious. He said in a low voice, "I'll sell it to you for a cheap price." Xiao Shi touched it and said thoughtfully, "Not bad." Her voice was gentle and moving, making the shopkeeper even more mesmerized. He hurriedly said, "Only 100 taels." Chu Li took out 100 taels and handed it to him. Xiao Shi inserted her hair into her hair, her bright eyes gleaming. "What do you think?" Chu Li nodded. "Not bad, let's go." Xiao Shi nodded lightly at the owner before she turned around and left gracefully. The shopkeeper was infatuated, unable to extricate himself. He watched as Xiao Shi's graceful figure disappeared. After a long while, he regained his senses, feeling inexplicably melancholic. Xiao Shi adjusted her hairpin. "How long will it take to reach the G public house?" "Probably 5 days," Chu Li said. "If I want to walk and play at the same time, it'll take 10 days. 10 days. Xiao Shi smiled. "That's not bad, let's take our time then." "All right." Chu Li nodded and pointed at a restaurant. "Have some supper, then we'll go back. Sleep early or you'll have to suffer tomorrow." Xiao Shi nodded. The two of them entered the restaurant and found an empty seat. They ordered a few of their signature dishes and looked down at the bright and bustling lights below. After slowly finishing their meal, they returned to the two small residences. The next day, they each rode on a fine horse and left Qingyun town, heading towards the G public house. Along the way, they came across a scenic spot and walked around it. It was a slow journey, and at night, they would return to Qingyun town to sleep. The next day, they would return to their original location and continue their journey. That evening, they walked lazily on the road. They planned to wait for a while before the sun completely set. If there was no town ahead, they would find a place to park their horses and return to Qingyun town. If there was a town ahead, they would enter the town to eat. They would see if the food in the town was to their liking. If not, they would return to Qingyun town. If it was to their liking, they would eat here and taste the delicacies. Chu Li suddenly furrowed his brows. Xiao Shi had been riding on a horse and talking to him. Seeing the change in his expression, she asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Li shook his head. Xiao Shi saw that he was trying to hide it and became more curious. "What happened?" Chu Li said, "The village ahead was massacred." Xiao Shi still did not understand. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. All the villagers were killed. Men, women, young and old, not a single one was spared. Not even the chickens and dogs were spared. His face darkened. Looking at this familiar way of killing, he knew who it was. Xiao Shi frowned. "That's too much. Who did it?" "Azura." Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "Forget it. You go back first. I'm going to catch up to this Azura." He frowned. Since when had the Tempest Temple become so unreliable? They were supposed to suppress them, so why did so many of them suddenly appear? First, they killed a Amethyst Mountain disciple, then severely injured Master Shinsu, and now this. Okay. Xiao Shi knew that this was not the time to join in the fun, so she agreed obediently. This was what Chu Li liked the most about her. She could see the big picture, knew when to advance and when to retreat. She was really smart. Chuli appeared behind her in a flash and grabbed her by the waist. In a flash, he disappeared from the horse's back. In another flash, he appeared on his own horse. He let the two horses into the forest and tied the long reins so that they could graze freely. He disappeared in a flash and reappeared in the mountain village. This was a quiet small mountain village. The pungent smell of blood was as thick as solid water. No matter how hard it tried, it would not dissipate. No matter how strong the wind blew, it still lingered around. Chuli took a deep breath and carefully observed the clues with the omniscient mirror. The nature restoration manifestation worked again. In the complicated scene that he observed, he quickly found the murderer's footprint. He followed the footprints and chased after them. In one breath, he chased for more than 50 miles and finally found him in the forest beside a small mountain village. From afar, the omniscient mirror saw an Azura fighting with a young man. This Azura was a middle-aged skinny man. His face was as pale as a patient's. His eyes were bright as if they could see through people's hearts. It was the one Chuli was looking for. The young man was slender and taller than the average person. He had long arms and legs. Not only did he not look clumsy, but he was surprisingly agile. His movements were harmonious and graceful. There was a natural beauty to it that was pleasing to the eye. His movements were as graceful as a dance, but his power was shocking. His hands formed claws like an eagle's claws and wave. There was a chee-chee sound as if it was tearing the air apart. In just a short while, he had already grabbed the Azura's shoulder twice. The Azura's body was strong. His clothes were torn, revealing his lean muscles. The muscles were like cast iron. When the young man's claws landed on them, they were slippery and could not penetrate. Only blood marks were left. Chapter 7:15. Both of them moved so quickly that only two shadows could be seen. Those with weaker martial arts could not see anything clearly. The speed of the Shura palm was extremely fast, but it always missed hitting the young man. Every time it was about to hit, the young man suddenly sped up and dodged it. After more than 100 moves, only the young man's hand landed on Azura. The Shura palm did not touch the young man even once. If it was not for the strong body of Azura, he would have fallen long ago. Even so, Azura was still at a disadvantage. The young man's claws were sharp but pleasing to the eye. He scratched Chuli's shoulder several times, leaving a few bloody marks. Chuli understood how rare this was. The strength of the young man's fingers was not inferior to a treasure sword. The body of Azura was so strong that even swords could not hurt him, but he could leave bloody marks. Chuli carefully stared at the young man and used the omniscient mirror to see the route of his martial arts. Then, he tried to circulate it in his body. A fine force condensed in his palms. He stretched out his palms and formed them into claws, just like the young man's claws. Suddenly, the force was connected, and his whole body felt indescribably comfortable. His hands suddenly became powerful as if they could tear anything, not even the human body. Chuli was amazed. This claw technique was not bad, but the key was the technique. Having claw techniques was useless. Instead of using this, he might as well use a sword. As his knowledge increased, he slowly understood that the martial arts he learned were not to replace the martial arts he was using, but to integrate the advantages of these martial arts to strengthen the martial arts he was using. The young man's claw technique was very powerful, but it might not be better than what he had learned. Integrating it into his own was the right way. However, having one more skill would allow him to achieve an unexpected effect at a critical moment. It was worth it to train for this critical moment. Humph! Azura suddenly let out a muffled groan. The young man's right claw grabbed Azura's shoulder and suddenly increased its power. It pierced into Azura's shoulder and 5 finger holes were clearly visible. Blood flowed out. Even if Azura had a strong will, he could not help but let out a muffled groan. He was instantly furious. His flesh shrunk and turned into a skeleton. His eyes flashed red and he pounced on the young man like a ghost. The young man scoffed and took a step behind Azura. He punched Azura's back. His speed was extremely fast and caught Azura off guard. Azura barely dodged it but could not completely avoid it. Bang! The Azura was sent flying. The young man took a step forward into the air and punched the Azura's back. Chu Li could clearly see that Chu Li's fist was soft, but when it landed, it sank deep into the Azura's body like a stone smashing into a piece of tofu. Chu Li's muscles instantly died, and a strange force was injected into the Azura's body, disrupting his inner energy. Phew! The young man's face paled as he let out a long sigh of relief and floated down to the ground. Chu Li narrowed his eyes. This young man's movement technique was somewhat similar to his own. It was close to shrinking the ground into an inch. The reason he could move so freely was also because of his so close yet worlds apart movement technique. This young man's fist technique was strange and worth learning. Condensing and compressing his inner force into a ball, then circulating it according to a strange mental cultivation method, turning it into the coldest yin qi, which was even more vicious than the Shura palm. This fist technique consumed a lot of inner energy. 2 punches had already consumed all the inner energy in the young man's body. This could only be used as a trump card. If he couldn't subdue his opponent after 2 punches, he wouldn't be able to fight back. Chu Li shook his head. He felt that this young man must have come from a famous clan. His cultivation level was high, but he was slightly weaker than himself. Unfortunately, he couldn't tell which faction he was a disciple from. The Azura fell to the ground with a bang and was limp and motionless. The Azura power technique and the fist force fought, and the winner couldn't be determined for a while. The young man sat down not far from the Azura and regulated his breathing. He inhaled for a long time and then slowly exhaled. Through this strange breathing technique, his inner energy recovered quickly. This was another strange antique study, but unfortunately, it was useless against Chu Li. The young man had just recovered a layer of inner energy when he suddenly heard a soft whistle. Another Azura appeared in front of him like a ghost and pounced on him without saying a word. It immediately turned into a skeleton, its eyes glowing as if it was real. It was extremely fast. The 2 of them clashed head-on. This Azura's speed was extremely fast, far faster than the previous one. The young man's body movement technique was comparable to the Azura's, and after a while, he began to feel strained. The Shura palm's palm force was strange and kept harassing him. He was no match for this Azura even at his peak. Now that his inner energy was weak, he couldn't recover his inner energy immediately even if he used pills. After more than 20 head-on attacks, he suddenly slowed down. Bang! The Shura palm hit the young man's shoulder squarely. He suddenly staggered a step back and dodged the next palm. Even when he was injured, he still relied on his body movement technique to contend with the Azura. His body movement technique was getting slower, but he could always dodge the Shura palm at the critical moment. He endured another 10 attacks. Bang! He finally reached his limit and suffered another Shura palm. This time, the palm hit his chest, causing him to spit out a mouthful of black blood. Chu Li let out a soft whistle and appeared in front of the 2 like a gust of wind. He threw a divine light fist from afar. Bang! The Azura was punched and flew 2 feet away. Chu Li went to the young man and looked at him. "Are you okay?" The young man quickly shook his head. "I'm fine. Thank you, brother." Chu Li said, "There's nothing to say against an Azura. Take a rest and leave it to me." "Okay." The young man nodded. Chu Li turned his back to the Azura and punched his back. Bang! The Shura palm and the divine light fist collided and a strong wind blew. Chu Li's punch was activated by the cloud slashing power. It was abnormally refined. Coupled with the divine light fist, the fist force was almost solid. The Shura palm dissipated, but the fist force of the divine light fist did not dissipate. It collided with the Azura. Bang! He flew again. Chu Li punched the air again. Bang! The Azura was sent flying again in the air. Bang! The Shura palm and the divine light fist collided in the air. The Azura somersaulted in the air again. Chu Li stood in the same place and punched again. The spiritual energy from all directions surged in and circulated through the cloud, slashing power. It immediately turned into the fist force of the divine light fist. It was endless and endless. The divine light fist was similar to the fist technique that the young man had used earlier. Usually, a single punch would be able to clear away all the inner energy in one's body. A person with a profound cultivation level could only perform a few punches, but Chu Li could continuously throw one punch after another. He used the advantage of his life and death scripture. Bystanders would not dare to say that this was the divine light fist. The fist force filled the air. The Azura flew further and further away. Finally, he glanced at the Azura on the ground and turned to fly away like a ghost. Chu Li suddenly turned his head and threw another punch. The Azura on the ground flew and crashed into a tree. Chapter 7:16. I'm Zhao Tianxing. How about you, brother? The young man smiled. He had already consumed a spirit pill. As he spoke, his breathing became longer as he slowly recovered from his injuries through the breathing technique. Chu Li noticed that he was recovering very quickly. The breathing technique was amazing, but unfortunately, Chu Li could not use it. Chu Li smiled. I'm Chu Li. Greetings, Brother Zhao. Brother Chu, I'm sorry for not recognizing you. The young man calmly gave a fist salute. It's an honor to meet you. Although he said so, his expression remained calm. It was obvious that he was not convinced by Chu Li. Chu Li shook his head. You flatter me. May I know which faction you're from, Brother Zhao? Hee, I'm a disciple of the Flying Eagle faction. Zhao Tianxing smiled. Chu Li raised his eyebrows but read his real identity in his mind. He shook his head and smiled. Brother Zhao, that can't be right. I don't think Brother Zhao is from the Flying Eagle faction. Have you been to the Flying Eagle faction, Brother Chu? Zhao Tianxing was surprised. Chu Li said slowly, what a coincidence. I'm old friends with the Flying Eagle faction. I've been there a few times, but I don't think Brother Zhao is there. I'm sorry. Zhao Tianxing looked embarrassed and shook his head helplessly. My seniors told me that I can't reveal my real identity when I'm in the martial arts world to avoid trouble, especially when there's an Azura next to me. Chu Li nodded. That makes sense. May I know which faction you're from, Brother Zhao? Zhao Tianxing sighed. To be honest, I'm actually a disciple of the Wild Goose faction. The Wild Goose faction. Chu Li nodded slowly and smiled. I'm not familiar with that. Brother Zhao, your antique study doesn't seem like it's from a small faction. Not at all. Zhao Tianxing sighed in relief and smiled. You're far from Brother Chu. You live up to your reputation. Chu Li said, I'm just taking advantage of you. Our cultivation levels are about the same. Haha. Zhao Tianxing waved his hand. Brother Chu, you're being too polite. I'm not as good as you. The two exchanged some pleasantries before looking at the Azura on the ground. Chu Li's last punch, the divine light fist, was so powerful that it made the Azura vomit blood. The Azura could not get up due to his strong physique. However, he would not die for now. Amit Ba. A Buddhist chant came from afar. Soon, it was right in front of them. Fa Xiang and the four gray-robed middle-aged monks fluttered forward and surrounded the Azura on the ground. Benefactor Chu is even more elegant than before, congratulations. Fa Xiang pressed his palms together and bowed. Chu Li pressed his palms together and smiled. Great Master Fa Xiang, you're saying such beautiful words right off the bat. You must have a request. Let me make this clear, Brother Zhao was the one who defeated this Azura, so it belongs to him, not me. So it's Benefactor Zhao. Fa Xiang bowed to Zhao Tianxing with pressed palms and squinted his eyes. Almsgiver Zhao, you're truly a young talent to be able to defeat Azura. This poor monk Fa Xiang greets you. There's no need to be so courteous, Master Fa Xiang. Zhao Tianxing clasped his fists and said calmly, What do you want, Master? Azura cannot be killed, can only be suppressed. My humble temple has a demon-subduing pagoda that can imprison him within, preventing him from committing evil in this world again. Fa Xiang said while putting his palms together. His precious appearance was dignified, his face full of benevolence. There's no need to trouble the Tempest Temple to suppress Azura. Zhao Tianxing shook his head. My faction has the ability to do so too. Oh? Fa Xiang was surprised. May I know which faction Almsgiver Zhao is from? Chu Li coughed softly and smiled. Brother Zhao is a disciple of the Wild Goose faction. Have you heard of him, Great Master? Zhao Tianxing frowned and stared at Fa Xiang. Fa Xiang frowned. The Wild Goose faction is a small faction in the south. How can we have the ability to suppress this person? We mustn't. For the sake of the world, my humble temple is duty-bound. I'll take this Azura away first. Thank you, Almsgiver Zhao. As he spoke, he waved his hand. 4 gray-robed monks picked up the Azura and were about to leave. Wait, Zhao Tianxing said in a low voice. I disagree. Fa Xiang frowned at him. Almsgiver Zhao, I'm sure you know how dangerous Azura can be. Once he's free, he'll kill a lot of people. Zhao Tianxing shook his head and said slowly, My faction can suppress him. There's no need for you to worry, Great Master. I've been following him all this way to subdue this Azura. Fa Xiang frowned and said, Almsgiver Zhao, you're going to put the people of the world in danger for your own selfish reasons. Please forgive me for not agreeing to this. Please excuse me. He waved his hand after he finished speaking. Just as the 4 gray-robed monks channeled and were about to leave, Zhao Tianxing appeared among them in a flash and snatched the Azura away from their encirclement. Like an antelope hanging its horn, he was untraceable. The 4 gray-robed monks were caught off guard and allowed him to escape from their encirclement. Amit Ba, Fa Xiang said. Almsgiver Zhao, you mustn't be stubborn. Zhao Tianxing shook his head. I won't hand him over to you. Then we'll have to offend you this once. Fa Xiang pressed his palms together and bowed. Zhao Tianxing said calmly, I've heard that the Tempest Temple is overbearing. It's indeed a well-deserved reputation. I'd like to learn from you. Sigh. Almsgiver Zhao, why do you have to do this? Fa Xiang sighed and waved his hand. Immediately, the 4 gray-robed monks floated over and surrounded Zhao Tianxing. They pressed their palms together and bowed before they struck out with their palms. Zhao Tianxing tossed the Azura to Chu Li. Brother Chu, keep it safe for me. Chu Li shook his head and could not help but laugh. He took the Azura and stood aside to watch the show. Fa Xiang turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li said, Great Master, you should think of a way to defeat Brother Zhao. I'll give the Azura to whoever wins. All right. Fa Xiang nodded slowly. He did not know what the relationship between Chu Li and Zhao Tianxing was, and whether they were close or not. However, he believed that they were friends and that it was impossible for Chu Li to give the Azura to him directly. Thus, he gave up and looked at the 5 people who were fighting. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Tianxing was surrounded on all sides. He scoffed and said, You've surrounded me from all sides. Isn't the Tempest Temple too shameless? He had not fully recovered from his injuries and his inner energy was weak. How could he be a match for the 4 monks? What's the point of being shameless? If a monk can't let go of this, he'll be cultivating Buddhism in vain. Fa Xiang said, I must bring the Azura back to the temple to be suppressed. Almsgiver Zhao, why must you be so stubborn? I'll never hand it over to the Tempest Temple. Zhao Tianxing scoffed. Although he was at a disadvantage, he would not be defeated anytime soon. The four monks in gray were not impatient either. They could tell that his inner energy was insufficient and that he would not be able to hold on soon. When that time came, he would be defeated without a fight. Zhao Tianxing suddenly let out a long howl. Fa Xiang frowned at Chu Li. Chu Li shook his head. Zhao Tianxing said, "Do you think I'm alone?" Fa Xiang pressed his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. "No matter who comes today, I must bring the Azura away. D*MN monk, you're talking big." Suddenly, a clear and delicate voice was heard. Chu Li frowned. He had vaguely heard this voice before. He saw a graceful woman gliding over and walking in the air. Her plum-red gown fluttered as she landed in front of Fa Xiang. Then, she stretched out her pale little hand and attacked Fa Xiang. Fa Xiang countered with his palm. Bang! Fa Xiang staggered 2 steps and looked at the graceful woman in shock. A pink veil covered her face, revealing only a pair of bright eyes. She glanced at Chu Li. "Chu Li, why are you here?" Chu Li smiled bitterly. "Greetings, great aunt. All right, you can call me auntie like young Qi." The graceful woman waved her hand. Chapter 717. P.S. Update complete. I'll give you a heads up. I've sent a public message today saying that there will be a thunderstorm tomorrow. The office hours have been changed. I live in a village, so I'm afraid there will be a power outage and internet connection. Please forgive me if I don't update in time tomorrow. This lady was Xiao Yueling. Xiao Yueling said, "A new disciple of the sect has entered the world. I'm here to take care of him and return the favor. Do you know Tianxing?" Chu Li grinned at Zhao Tianxing. "Aunt, are you talking about Brother Zhao? Isn't he from the Wild Goose faction?" Zhao Tianxing called out, "Masters Jr." When he saw that Chu Li and Masters Jr. Xiao Yueling knew each other, he felt a little awkward. Then, he asked nonchalantly, "Masters Jr. and Brother Chu know each other? What do you think?" Xiao Yueling said impatiently. Zhao Tianxing scratched his head and smiled bitterly. "I almost forgot about Masters Jr.'s background. Brother Chu, I'm really sorry for lying to you." Chu Li laughed. "You've lied to me over and over again. I've been fooled by you, Brother Zhao. First it was the Flying Eagle faction, then it was the Wild Goose faction. In the end, neither of them were. You're indeed a disciple of Green Deer Cliff. Impressive." Zhao Tianxing appeared to be gentle, polite, and friendly. Coupled with his handsome appearance, it was easy for him to leave a good impression on others and make him easy to approach. However, he was not telling the truth. Lying seemed to be an innate ability of his. His brain did not need to think at all to lie. Zhao Tianxing smiled. "I'm too ashamed to tell Brother Chu about my faction." He was not lying, but other than Chu Li, it was difficult for others to tell if he was telling the truth or not. The four monks in gray did not mind and continued to deplete Zhao Tianxing's inner energy with ease. They did not put too much pressure on him as they waited for him to run out of energy. Zhao Tianxing was able to divert his attention to talk. It looked like he was at a disadvantage, but it was not difficult for him. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Xiao Yueling asked, "When did you meet?" "We just met," Chu Li replied. Zhao Tianxing said, "Martial uncle, it was Brother Chu who saved my life. I nearly lost my life when another Azura ran over just now." Xiao Yueling harumphed. "He escaped from my hands." She looked at Chu Li. "It's all thanks to you. Otherwise, I would have committed a grave sin. Tianxing is a disciple who has just left the mountain. He has little experience in the martial arts world. This is the time when he is at a disadvantage." Chu Li smiled and said, "Aunt, you're worrying too much. With Brother Zhao's ability, he's the only one who'll let others suffer losses. How can he let himself suffer losses?" Xiao Yueling rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. "Give me the Azura." Chu Li turned to look at Fa Xiang and said helplessly, "Great Master, I'm sorry. Fa Xiang pressed his palms together and said to Xiao Yueling, "So it's almsgiver Xiao. This humble monk has been impolite. Since almsgiver Xiao is here, this humble monk shall take his leave." He now knew Xiao Yueling's identity. She was the previous lady of the public house, the younger sister of High Duke Xiao, and a disciple of Green Deer Cliff. Since she was here, Chu Li would definitely have to listen to her. They had no chance of winning. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to waste any more time. He pressed his palms together and said in a deep voice, "Let's go." The 4 gray-robed monks fluttered backward and followed behind Fa Xiang. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "Aunt, what do you want the Azura for? If they can suppress it, so can we." Xiao Yueling scoffed. "Why should this bunch of monks take all the benefits?" Chu Li smiled. Xiao Yueling said to Zhao Tianxing, "You two are considered acquaintances. Don't become enemies." "How can I?" Zhao Tianxing quickly smiled. "Brother Chu has saved my life. How can we become enemies?" "Masters Junior, you're worrying too much." Xiao Yueling nodded. "That's good. You should focus on channeling." She was smart enough to see through Zhao Tianxing's awkward thoughts and knew that he was jealous of Chu Li. However, he was not a bad person, so she was not afraid that the two of them would become enemies. Zhao Tianxing gave Chu Li a fist salute. "Brother Chu, please don't take it to heart." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Zhao Tianxing sat down with his legs crossed and channeled his breathing to quickly recover his inner energy. After fighting for a while, his inner energy had been depleted and his injuries were about to flare up again. He was forcing himself to speak. Xiao Yueling pointed to the side. The two of them walked 100 meters away, and Xiao Yueling sized Chu Li up. Chu Li smiled. "Aunt, what are you looking at? I didn't expect you to become like this." Xiao Yueling shook her head. "I didn't expect this at all." At that time, Chu Li had great aptitude, but she did not expect him to become so powerful in such a short period of time. He had even surpassed Fa Yuan from the Tempest Temple, and was now the youth champion. Chu Li in the north and Du Feng in the south. Chu Li smiled. Xiao Yueling asked, "What's going on between you and Xiao Qi?" Chu Li sighed. Xiao Yueling scoffed. "Who told me and you just let Xiao Qi continue on the enlightened master's path?" "I've joined the Amethyst Mountain," Chu Li said. "I'm cultivating the nature restoration manifestation." Xiao Yueling's eyes flickered and she nodded. "At least you have some conscience. Can you cultivate the nature restoration manifestation?" Chu Li replied, "I'm working hard." "There's no rush," Xiao Yueling said. "It's not easy to become an enlightened master. Even if you don't care about her, she might not succeed even if she cultivates for a lifetime. Your nature restoration manifestation has reached a high level and can break her inner state. I'm just afraid that your nature restoration manifestation won't improve as fast as her inner state." Chu Li smiled. "I'll break her inner state sooner or later." I'm watching," Xiao Yueling scoffed. "It's an opportunity to become a disciple of the Amethyst Mountain. Grasp it well and don't embarrass the High Duke's public house." Chu Li nodded. "Oh right, I heard that Green Deer Cliff uses the Spirit Crane technique as its foundation. Aunt, can you teach me the Spirit Crane technique?" "In your dreams," Xiao Yueling said impatiently. "The Spirit Crane technique is the core technique of Green Deer Cliff. How can we teach it to outsiders?" Chu Li sighed in disappointment. "The martial arts of the Amethyst Mountain are enough for you to cultivate. Why do you need the Spirit Crane technique?" Xiao Yueling scoffed. "Just cultivate properly. Don't bite off more than you can chew." Chu Li smiled and nodded. Amit Ba. A Buddhist chant was heard, followed by a clear voice. "Almsgiver Chu." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. "Fa Yuan, why are you being so sneaky?" "I have a few words to say to Almsgiver Chu." Fa Yuan's calm voice was heard slowly. Chu Li turned his head. "Aunt, I'll go take a look." "Go." Xiao Yueling waved her hand. Chu Li glided away and arrived at a gazebo a mile away. It was a post house. Only Fa Yuan stood quietly in the gazebo. His gray cowl fluttered in the wind, making him look handsome. Chu Li flashed into the gazebo and smiled. You transferred me here because you want to snatch the Azuras, right? I have no choice. Fa Yuan shook his head and sighed. If almsgiver Chu wishes to help, I can only accompany you to the end and hold you back. All right, Chu Li said. I'd like to ask what's going on with the Tempest Temple. Didn't you suppress the Azuras? Why is there such a big mess? It looks like they're even more savage than before. The Holy Church of Light, Fa Yuan said in a serious tone. They've mastered the Azura taming technique. They've already tamed 20 people. Chu Li's expression turned serious. He said in a low voice, You're just going to let them run wild in the Ji dynasty? Fa Yuan said, They've sent quite a number of masters to catch us off guard. It won't be so easy for them to succeed next time. But the suppression has also been broken. Many Azuras have escaped. Now, the disciples of my temple are tracking these Azuras. Sigh. Chu Li shook his head. How many have escaped? 22. Fa Yuan spat out the number with much difficulty and revealed an awkward expression. Chu Li glared at him. Fa Yuan said, Almsgiver Chu, you have to be careful of the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li scoffed. They've been looking for trouble with me. Of course I know that. The Azuras they've tamed are all top-notch Azuras. Some of them have higher cultivation levels than me. I'm worried that they'll use them against you. Fa Yuan frowned. Chapter 7:18. Chu Li frowned. 22 Azuras escape. How many have you caught up to now? We've caught up to 2. Fa Yuan sighed softly. Chu Li frowned. 2. Fa Yuan said helplessly, These Azuras escaped from the suppression formation. They're hard to deal with and hard to catch up to. Even if we do catch up to them, they can easily escape. The temple has scattered manpower, but... He shook his head as he spoke. Chu Li frowned. With your abilities, you shouldn't have only caught up to 2, right? Fa Yuan replied, It's like finding a needle in a haystack. It's not easy. Let me help you. Chu Li scoffed. I still have to clean up the mess left by the Tempest Temple. Seriously, Fa Yuan perked up. I was just about to ask for almsgiver Chu's help. You want to use the Secret Guardians Hall's information net? Chu Li scoffed. Fa Yuan nodded. Although the Tempest Temple has its own information source, it's not as good as the Secret Guardians Hall. If the Secret Guardians Hall can help, I'll be eternally grateful. Chu Li scoffed. The Tempest Temple must have a secret technique to find Azuras, right? Every time he defeated an Azura, someone from the Tempest Temple would come over. It was the same this time. Zhao Tianxing had finally defeated one, and Fa Xiang immediately came over with his men. It was such a coincidence. He deduced that the Tempest Temple must have a secret technique to track down Azuras. Yes. Fa Yuan nodded. The temple does have a secret technique to track down Azuras, but it's difficult to cultivate. Only senior brother Fa Xiang, me, and senior brother Fa Yin have cultivated this technique. The others can only look around. Tell me about it. Chu Li grinned at him. Fa Yuan hesitated for a moment before he pressed his palms together. All right, I'll pass this secret technique to you, Brother Chu. Chu Li asked, It doesn't violate the rules of the Tempest Temple? It's fine. Fa Yuan smiled. To cultivate this secret technique, one needs to be proficient in Buddhist doctrines. It's similar to a divine power. It will open the orifice of the nose and allow one to smell Azuras. Azuras have a smell? Chu Li was surprised. Fa Yuan said slowly, Brother Chu, just think about it and you will understand. How many people have they killed? How can there not be the stench of blood? This isn't just a simple smell, it's the smell of sin. If Brother Chu can successfully cultivate this secret technique, then you'll definitely be able to smell it clearly. If you can't, then no matter how much I say, it'll be useless. Chu Li said, "Sure, I'd like to see it." He wanted to capture Asuras for the Tempest Temple. Firstly, he could not bear to see innocent people die in the hands of Asuras. Secondly, he wanted to cultivate the nature restoration manifestation. There was nothing more thrilling than fighting with an Asura or the disciples of the Holy Church of Light who were not afraid of death. Fa Yuan said, "Teachings should not be passed on to others. I need to be enlightened and pass on my power." "No problem," Chu Li agreed without hesitation, playing it down. Fa Yuan looked at him. Imparting power to him required him to place his palm on top of his head. If he had any strange thoughts, he would immediately take his life. How dangerous was that? Chu Li smiled. "I believe that you won't kill me, Fa Yuan." Amit Ba. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. He was touched. "All right then, I'll pass it on to Brother Chu." Chu Li sat by the stone table. Fa Yuan stood in front of him and slowly extended his left palm. Chu Li had the omniscient mirror and the nature restoration manifestation. If Fa Yuan had any intention to kill him, he would be able to sense it immediately. He could use his divine power to disappear in an instant. He was not worried that Fa Yuan would really threaten him. Fa Yuan's feelings towards Chu Li were complicated. He admired his aptitude and wisdom, but at the same time, he was a little jealous. He suppressed this jealousy with righteousness. What he needed to do was not to be jealous of others, but to be himself and do better. With this mentality, he could get along with Chu Li peacefully. They were always in a state of being friends yet enemies. Sometimes they would become opponents, but they trusted each other. Chu Li's mind was calm and his thoughts were smooth. It was as if he was in a meditative state. His heart was not moved, and everything around him was clearly reflected in his mind. A passage of scripture flowed into his heart like a trickling stream. After a moment, it finished flowing and he pressed his palms together. Fa Yuan let go of his hand and pressed his palms together. Chu Li smiled. "What secret technique is this?" "The all-knowing scripture," Fa Yuan said. "This scripture is not the most top-notch secret technique, but it has its own mysteries. Unfortunately, without a deep meditation technique, it is very difficult to cultivate. Brother Chu, you come from the Buddhist sect, so your meditation technique is not bad. You might be able to cultivate it." Chu Li slowly nodded. "After I cultivate it, I will help to capture Asuras." "Thank you, Brother Chu." Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Chu Li waved his hand. "You guys are too slow. Are the disciples from the previous generation not going to help?" Fa Yuan shook his head. "Masters and masters' uncles are mostly in isolated cultivation. They don't care about worldly affairs." Chu Li said, "The Tempest Temple is really interesting. They polish their mortal hearts in the world of mortals. After polishing their mortal hearts, they will be able to cultivate their dharmic base better. Once the masters and masters' uncles have a realization, their dharmic base will enter another level. They will come out to train and then go into isolated cultivation again." Chu Li nodded. It seemed like he had misunderstood the Tempest Temple. The foundation of the Tempest Temple was still the dharmic base. Brother Chu, when cultivating the all-knowing scripture, the longer the better. It's best to find a place to go into isolated cultivation. If you can cultivate for 10 days in one go, you will almost be able to cultivate it, Fa Yuan said. Unfortunately, most people can't hold on. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Fa Yuan said, "Brother Chu, I can see that your soul is strong. It is the best quality to cultivate the all-knowing scripture." "Understood." Chu Li nodded. "Then, I will take my leave." Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Chu Li had been paying attention to the situation a mile away. He saw that Fa Xiang and a middle-aged monk had brought 4 people with him. Fa Xiang and the other monk personally held Xiao Yueling back while the other 8 monks snatched the azuras and fluttered away. Soon, Fa Xiang and the others left too. Xiao Yueling and Zhao Tianxing did not chase after them. Chu Li smiled. See you then. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together and fluttered past the treetops. His gray cowl fluttered in the wind as he disappeared in the blink of an eye. When Chu Li appeared in front of Xiao Yueling, she glared at him. Zhao Tianxing smiled. Brother Chu, you left at the right time. Chu Li said, a monk from the Tempest Temple was holding me back. I couldn't help it. You're friends with that stupid monk from the Tempest Temple? Xiao Yueling scoffed. She was besieged by Fa Xiang and the other monk. Although she did not lose, she had to watch helplessly as the azuras were taken away. She was frustrated and unhappy. Chu Li said, I'm friends with Fa Yuan. He told me some news that more than 20 azuras have escaped this time. What's worse is that the Holy Church of Light is able to tame the azuras, so they've already obtained 20 top-notch azuras. The Holy Church of Light. Xiao Yueling frowned. 20 azuras? Chu Li nodded. These 20 azuras are the scourge of the Ji dynasty. We must find them no matter what. I'll have to pass this news to the sect. Xiao Yueling frowned. The destructive power of the azuras is not to be underestimated. We must let the sect deal with them. Zhao Tianxing said, I didn't expect Brother Chu to be friends with Fa Yuan. Chu Li smiled. Brother Zhao and Fa Yuan know each other? Chapter 719. Chu Li smiled. Fa Yuan is kind-hearted. Brother Zhao will like him. A disciple of the Tempest Temple. Zhao Tianxing shook his head and laughed. Kind-hearted? Chu Li replied, that's what most people think. Fa Yuan is actually very easy to get along with. Brother Zhao, you'll know once you try him. And, since you're busy, I'll take my leave. What are you busy with? Xiao Yueling asked. Chu Li pondered for a moment and sighed. I'm going to investigate the Ji public house. You're going to investigate the Ji public house? Xiao Yueling was surprised. Chu Li replied, I'm a secret guardian of the imperial house now. There's something wrong with the Ji public house, and I want to investigate it. Xiao Yueling smiled. You've grown up now. You're a secret guardian of the imperial house, and you're investigating the High Duke's public house. You're quite brave. I was forced by circumstances to come here step by step. What's wrong with the Ji public house? They're related to the Holy Church of Light. I want to see if they're innocent. The High Duke's public house wouldn't do such a thing. I don't believe it either, so I'm going to investigate. I'm worried if it's someone else. Go. Xiao Yueling waved her hand. Be careful. The Ji public house isn't an ordinary person. He's not easy to deal with. Chu Li nodded and fist saluted. He smiled at Zhao Tianxing and glided away. Xiao Yueling shook her head and sighed as she looked in the direction where he disappeared. Masters Jr. is worried about Brother Chu? Zhao Tianxing asked. Brother Chu is steady. There won't be any problems. Humph, this is a big problem. Xiao Yueling rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. Do you know the relationship between the 12 public houses and the imperial family? Forget it, you won't understand even if I explain it to you. Hurry up and treat your injuries. Masters Jr., are we still going to capture azuras? Zhao Tianxing frowned. I'm not satisfied that the Tempest Temple has gotten their hands on one. Where are we going to catch one? Xiao Yueling shook her head. We were lucky this time, but we might not be able to catch one next time. Why don't we ask the Tempest Temple to share one with us? Zhao Tianxing said, I see that Brother Chu has a good relationship with Fa Yuan. If we discuss it, it should work out. Tianxing you. Xiao Yueling sighed and said, Do you think that because you're a disciple of Green Deer Cliff, everyone has to revolve around you and think for you? Zhao Tianxing smiled in embarrassment. Xiao Yueling said, Fa Yuan and Chu Li are both prodigies. Why should they care about Green Deer Cliff? If you think like that, it will be hard to get along with them. It's nothing. Zhao Tianxing smiled and said, I've had a good time with you, Brother Chu. Xiao Yueling scoffed. You're such a fool. I really shouldn't have let you leave the mountain. Don't. Zhao Tianxing was startled. We're already out. We can't go back, right? It was not easy for him to get out of the mountain. He had been looking forward to it day and night, and now he was finally out. If he had to go back to the mountain and not be able to come out, he would really suffocate to death. In that case, you have to promise me that you're not allowed to reveal your identity without my permission. You'll also have to change your name from now on. You won't be called Zhao Tianxing anymore. Xiao Yueling scoffed. She looked at Zhao Tianxing helplessly. Zhao Tianxing's aptitude in martial arts was top-notch, but his personality was a little problematic. He was still like a childish child who was self-centered and did not even blink when he lied. It was difficult to tell which was the truth and which was a lie. This kind of personality needed to be tempered. He would only improve after suffering a few times. Before he matured, he really could not be allowed to reveal the name of Green Deer Cliff. It would tarnish Green Deer Cliff's reputation. Yes, Zhao Tianxing quickly replied. He secretly sighed at his retribution. He had lied to Chu Li earlier and did not want to reveal his name. Now, because of Masters Jr., he could not reveal his name anymore. It was a waste of God's gift that he could not reveal the name of Green Deer Cliff. Chu Li returned to Qingyun Town and sat cross-legged on his bed in his bedroom. The omniscient mirror appeared and the all-knowing scripture flashed in the mirror. There were more than 500 words in total. It quickly flowed through and continued to flow over and over again. Chu Li's spirit was strong. He did not sleep for the entire night as the heart mirror circulated the scripture. His spirit and the scripture slowly intertwined and became inseparable. His body underwent an inexplicable change. Early in the morning, he slowly opened his eyes and suddenly realized that his surroundings were exceptionally fresh. It was like the refreshing feeling after a rain. He smiled. It seemed that the all-knowing scripture was working. His sense of smell had changed. The scripture circulated in his mind again, and the refreshing feeling around him gradually intensified. Then, his senses gradually became richer. He initially thought that it was just one smell, but now, he realized that it was a combination of more than 10 scents, each of which was extremely unique. Heaven and earth seemed to have become a world of scents. Everything was emitting its own unique scent, and everyone was emitting their own scent. He suddenly raised his eyebrows. He smelled a strong smell of blood among the complex scents. It was particularly pungent and inexplicably repulsive. In a flash, he disappeared from the bed. Xiao Shi pushed the door open and saw him sitting on the bed. She was about to speak when he suddenly disappeared. She was stunned and knew that something had happened. Her journey was probably coming to an end. Chu Li followed the smell of blood and soon appeared in a gazebo in a forest 20 miles away. There, he saw a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was thin and tall like a javelin. He looked coldly at Chu Li who had floated in. Chu Li frowned. He did not expect an Azura to be so close to Qingyun Town. Without another word, he threw a punch. The divine light fist was silent and the fist force instantly arrived in front of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's body tensed up. He wanted to turn around and dodge, but another punch had already arrived. Bam! The middle-aged man had no choice but to block the punch with his palm. Chu Li's fists moved like lightning. One punch after another, the sky was filled with fist shadows that enveloped the middle-aged man. Bam 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 bam! The middle-aged man waved his shura palm. He dodged left and right and kept retreating. Unfortunately, Chu Li kept chasing after him. One of them retreated while the other advanced. Everywhere they passed, the trees were broken and the leaves were blasted into pieces. They turned into dust and drifted to the ground. The fist force of the divine light fist was extremely violent. The leaves that came into contact with it turned into dust. Bam! The middle-aged man's movement suddenly froze as he took a solid hit from the divine light fist. As Chu Li's left fist was swinging, he secretly used the petrifying finger. The middle-aged man was flustered by the divine light fist and could not avoid it. Bam 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 bam! As the middle-aged man froze, a few punches landed on his body. The power of the divine light fist was tyrannical. Even with the body of Azura, he was still hit until he vomited blood. His internal organs shifted and his inner energy was in a mess. He flew into the air and fell heavily to the ground. Chu Li approached him and looked at him quietly. "How many people did you kill?" The middle-aged man laughed coldly. His flesh shrunk and turned into a skeleton. He was about to pounce on Chu Li. Chu Li pointed his finger. The middle-aged man suddenly stopped and vomited another mouthful of blood. His red eyes dimmed. Chu Li said, "More than 300 people. Very good." He pointed his finger again. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.